Chapter 781. Xianyang City, North City Gate. Guards, I suspect that this kid might be a spy who sneaked into Xianyang City. Take him down and send him to the prison. Wang Xinchao ordered the guards behind him. He was just a small warrior in the martial master realm. Any soldier present could easily take him down. Thus, when they heard Wang Xinchao's order, the 7 guards walked towards the sect disciple. What do you want? When he saw the 7 guards walking towards him, a trace of panic flashed across the sect disciple's face. He could not help but explain himself loudly. I am Zhang Yu, an elite disciple of the Aquafire sect. The Aquafire sect is a member of the Qin Alliance's expedition this time. We are now a family. If Zhang Yu had not exposed his sect, the 7 guards might have captured him based on their cultivation. After all, they were also worried about offending a sect disciple with a strong background. They were afraid that the other party would take revenge on them. However, when they heard that Zhang Yu was a mere disciple of a third-rate sect, their original intention to capture him immediately turned into a target to vent their frustration and anger. Ah! How could you attack your ally? Zhang Yu, who had been thrown to the ground by 3 heavy punches and 4 wind kicks, howled in pain as he questioned loudly. Ah! My arm is broken. My leg. Help! Unfortunately, when faced with Zhang Yu's sorrowful pleas for help, no one dared to help him. Ha ha! When they saw the people walking towards the city gate, they either quickened their pace in fear or turned their heads away. No one dared to stop them. This made Wang Xinchao feel very proud, and he could not help but laugh out loud. Scram! But just as he was laughing maniacally, he heard a thunderous reprimand. Who are you? Wang Xinchao, whose laughter was interrupted by the reprimand, asked angrily. However, when he realized that he could not see through the strength of the 6 people in front of him, the anger on his face was instantly replaced by a grave expression. Yu Haoran glanced coldly at Wang Xinchao and did not reply. Then, he walked into Xianyang City. Stop! Although he couldn't figure out Yu Haoran's depth, the anger of being scolded in public and the superiority of being a soldier of the Emperor Qin Kingdom made him stand in front of Yu Haoran and remind him with certainty. This is still the capital of the Emperor Qin's kingdom, Xianyang. Anyone with an unknown background, either tell us where you came from, or follow me to the military camp for the record. Sizing up Wang Xinchao from head to toe, Yu Haoran appeared to be very arrogant and domineering as he said, not to mention a mere gatekeeper captain like you, even the commander of your city gate guards would have to kneel and salute me when he sees me. His original plan had been to enter Xianyang City without causing any trouble, and then head straight for the imperial clan court. However, the way the city guards had bullied the Fire Water sect's elite disciple, Zhang Yu, had made him change his mind. He was going to cause a ruckus at the city gates and attract everyone's attention. Then, under everyone's watchful eyes, he would head for the imperial clan court. He wanted to use the mouths of these people, their eyes, and their shocking thoughts to make a name for himself and lay down the foundation for his future team. Since Sir has such a noble status, I presume you don't mind announcing your name. In the face of Yu Haoran's arrogant and domineering tone, Wang Xinchao couldn't help but sneer and taunt. Peak Grandmaster Alchemist Yu Haoran. The fact that he did not announce his master meant that Yu Haoran was truly determined to establish his own team, and it also meant that starting today, he would do his best to maintain a distance from his master. Peak Grandmaster Alchemist Yu Haoran. When Yu Haoran announced his background, Wang Xinchao found it rather familiar, but he couldn't quite place it. One of the soldiers who had ganged up on Zhang Yu was one of the soldiers who had been guarding the city gates when Yu Haoran had clashed with Qin Fengxiu the last time he had come to Xianyang City. At the start, he hadn't dared to confirm Yu Haoran's identity. After all, Yu Haoran was currently wanted by the Imperial Clan Court. However, after hearing Yu Haoran's self-introduction, he immediately walked to Wang Xinchao's side in a panic and reminded him in a low voice. Captain, He's the one who was pursued by the Imperial clan court 9 days ago and was almost engaged to Princess Ling Fei, Yu Haoran. What? You're Yu Haoran? After hearing his subordinate's reminder, Wang Xinchao took a few steps back in horror and asked with a trembling voice. That's right, I'm Yu Haoran, the one wanted by the Imperial clan court. Yu Haoran nodded and admitted with a chuckle. With Yu Haoran's admission, the pedestrians outside the city gates couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. If one were to say who was the most famous in the recent period of time, that person would be the most discussed. It wasn't Meng Xing, the successor of the Meng clan, who had just been forced to take poison, nor was it Qin Tianyi, who had been stripped of her qualifications as successor and imprisoned in the Imperial clan court. Nor was it great Emperor Qin Tianzi, who had just returned to Xianyang City and was almost forgotten by everyone. Rather, it was Yu Haoran, who had fallen out with the Imperial clan court on the spot at the engagement ceremony and had used a poison pill to kill hundreds of people from the Imperial clan court. He was a peak Grandmaster alchemist. Under normal circumstances, a wanted criminal of the Grand Emperor Qin's Imperial clan court would have either been beheaded or fled far away from the Emperor Qin's Imperial clan court. No one had expected that Yu Haoran, who had fled Xianyang City less than 9 days ago, would swagger back to Xianyang City today. Some of the servants of the powerful clans quietly slipped into the city and sped back to their clans to inform the experts of their clans that Yu Haoran, who had once stirred up a storm in Xianyang City, had returned. Yu Haoran didn't stop them. He simply looked at Wang Xinchao and asked with a chuckle, "Given my status as Yu Haoran, do I still need to file a record with the Ministry of War?" "Of course not." Wang Xinchao hurriedly waved his hand and shook his head. In response, Yu Haoran simply chuckled. He suddenly took a step forward and his smile was immediately replaced by a serious expression. "Since you are the city guard guarding Xianyang City, you must know the military etiquette of the Emperor Qin's Imperial clan. In front of the Grand Emperor Qin's Imperial son-in-law, as the captain of the guards, shouldn't you kneel down and salute him?" This. In the face of Yu Haoran's serious question, Wang Xinchao didn't know how to answer or what to do. Under normal circumstances, he should have immediately knelt down and saluted him. However, Yu Haoran was now a wanted criminal of the Imperial clan court. If he knelt down and saluted him in public, it would definitely arouse the disgust and misunderstanding of the court. Chapter 782. Intravenous Drip. Chapter 6. A little later. Xianyang City, North City Gate. If it was in the past, Captain Wang would definitely kneel down and greet you. But now. Just as Wang Xinchao was wondering how to respond to Yu Haoran's question, a voice suddenly came from behind him, causing him to turn around in surprise. "Wang Xinchao greets young Master Yizhua." Wang Xinchao was immediately moved when he saw that the person who had helped him was Wang Yizhua from the Wang family of Xianyang City. "Captain Wang is too polite." Wang Yizhua, who was dressed like a gentleman, replied modestly and politely. Then, Wang Yizhua tapped the fan in his hand against his palm and looked at Yu Haoran with a smug expression, mocking him. What right does a reckless lowly commoner have to make the soldiers of the Emperor Qin kingdom kneel down and greet him? Faced with Wang Yizhua's mockery, Yu Haoran did not show any signs of anger and only said calmly, "Wang Yizhua, even if we hadn't met in the northern part of the city today, I would have personally paid a visit to the Wang clan after settling the grudge between me and the Imperial clan court. I would have personally asked your Wang clan's ancestor why he didn't keep his promise." His tone paused and his calm expression was replaced by a sneer. "But there is no need for that now, because I will fulfill the original agreement on behalf of your old ancestor. Brother Feng, pay attention to the 2 peak 7th grade martial saints in the city gate." After reminding Zhai Xing with his spiritual sense, Yu Haoran rushed towards Wang Yizhua. Facing Yu Haoran, who was rushing towards him like a gust of wind, Wang Yizhua did not show any signs of panic. He even opened his fan and looked like he was watching a show. When he was less than 2 meters away from Wang Yizhua, 2 figures appeared beside him like lightning. But at this moment, a figure that was many times faster than lightning directly sent the 2 figures flying. Then, the figure appeared in front of Yu Haoran and respectfully replied, "Dead. Thank you for your hard work." Nodding and thanking Zhai Xing, Yu Haoran resumed his footsteps and instantly appeared in front of Wang Yizhua. In the face of Yu Haoran, who had rushed in front of him in an instant, Wang Yizhua was slightly flustered, but his eyes did not reveal the slightest fear. He just looked at Yu Haoran indifferently and asked, "Do you dare to kill me?" "Why wouldn't I?" Yu Haoran, who knew Wang Yizhua's trump card, mobilized all the essence force in his dantian and blasted it towards Wang Yizhua's chest. Just as his heavy fist landed on Wang Yizhua's chest, an incomparably powerful white energy bounced him back. At the same time, he also took the opportunity to protect Wang Yizhua. Thaling. Seeing the white energy shield rising from Wang Yizhua's body, Yu Haoran was not surprised at all. He just signaled Thaling to immediately use the possession technique. "Yu Haoran, I only have one request for you now, and that is to kill. Before using the possession technique, Thaling suppressed his anger and commanded. This was because when the white energy erupted from Wang Yizhua's body, Thaling finally knew the reason why Yu Haoran was able to successfully seize the treasure in Mizang graveyard. That was, someone had long calculated that Yu Haoran would be reborn in the future and had made preparations in advance. Simply put, someone was manipulating Yu Haoran's fate. As someone who was closely related to Yu Haoran, how could Thaling tolerate such a thing happening? Therefore, he wanted to thoroughly stimulate the killing intent in Yu Haoran's body and greatly increase his own killing intent. Then, he would use the law of time to combine with a strong killing intent to stir up the long river of fate again and try to see if there was a chance for him to escape from being manipulated. Of course, Thaling did not intend to tell Yu Haoran about the secret of being manipulated to avoid messing up his mind and affecting his future cultivation. "Got it." Yu Haoran, who had accepted Thaling's soul into his body, replied in a low voice. "Grandmaster Yu, long time no see. I didn't expect you to have already broken through to the martial king realm." Just as Yu Haoran was accepting Thaling's soul into his body, the white energy completely enveloped Wang Yizhua. An old illusory figure emerged from the white energy and called out enthusiastically. "It seems that Grandmaster Yu is not only a shocking genius in the Tao of alchemy, but also a monstrous genius in the Tao of martial arts. Wang family ancestor, I originally only wanted to fulfill the agreement you didn't fulfill back then and use this to eliminate the grudge between me and the Wang family." Faced with the Wang family ancestor's enthusiastic greeting, Yu Haoran gnashed his teeth and threatened. "But from the moment you made your move just now, I, Yu Haoran, will not rest until your Wang family is dead." "Ha ha!" In the face of Yu Haoran's gnashing teeth threat, the Wang family's old ancestor chuckled lightly and said in a casual tone, "Grandmaster Yu, my grandson Yizhua is too naughty. If he has offended Grandmaster, this old man apologizes to you. This old man will take him back and discipline him strictly." Then, ignoring the gloomy Yu Haoran, the Wang family ancestor waved his sleeves and left the North City Gate with Wang Yizhua. Wang Yizhua, who was protected by the white energy barrier, provoked arrogantly. Didn't you want to kill me? Come on. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Faced with Wang Yizhua's arrogant provocation, Yu Haoran, who had successfully accepted Thaling's soul into his body, replied with a cold smile. Then, he appeared in front of Wang Yizhua in a flash and punched towards Wang Yizhua's head again. The Wang family ancestor, who was using his Yuan Qi to guide the white energy barrier, just looked at Yu Haoran coldly and did not stop him. Because he believed that with the energy barrier cast by a peak 9th grade martial saint, even if Yu Haoran was exhausted to death, he would not be able to break through the defense of the barrier. But when Yuhaoran's heavy fist came into contact with the white energy barrier, an unimaginably terrifying energy not only directly destroyed the barrier, but also directly smashed the head of the smiling Wang Yizhua, causing brain matter to splatter everywhere. Yuhaoran, you're courting death. Because he was too confident in the defensive energy he cast on Wang Yizhua, the Wang family ancestor could not stop him in time. Seeing his most beloved grandson get his head smashed and his soul destroyed by Yuhaoran, the Wang family ancestor immediately roared with a murderous aura. Wang family ancestor, not to mention that you're just a body formed by a strand of your soul, even if your true body came, I would still smash you into pieces. Faced with the Wang family ancestor's roar, Yuhaoran arrogantly provoked him, as he smashed the body formed by the Wang family ancestor's soul with his fist again. Just as the body formed by the Wang family ancestor's soul was smashed into pieces, an angry roar resounded from the Wang family's mansion, which was about 200 meters away from the northern city gates. Yuhaoran, you dare to kill my grandson and destroy my soul. I'll chop you into pieces. Chapter 783. Xianyang City, Imperial Palace. Just as Yuhaoran arrived at the northern city gates, Emperor Qin, who had already received the news, sat on the dragon throne in his study with a complicated expression. Emperor Qin was very familiar with what kind of person Yuhaoran was. He knew very well that not only did Yuhaoran dare to return to Xianyang City, but he also dared to so brazenly do so without fear of being discovered. This meant that he definitely had the means to deal with the quasi-Emperor Qin Baijun. Emperor Qin had decided that not only would he not interfere with the grudges between the imperial clan court and Yuhaoran, he would not even show his face. At most, if Yuhaoran or Qin Baijun were in mortal danger, he would step in to save them. After all, whether it was the overly lawless Yuhaoran or the imperial clan court that meddled too much in the affairs of the imperial family, Emperor Qin loathed them both. However, when he heard the Wang clan ancestor's angry roar, he froze for a moment, then couldn't help but bitterly smile as he complained to the young man who looked almost 90% similar to him standing in front of his desk. You hear that, I knew that if this kid didn't cause trouble for a day, he would feel uncomfortable all over. Your little sister even complained to us about this, saying that us didn't understand Yuhaoran and that us was narrow-minded and envious of Yuhaoran's free will. Don't you think that us is wronged? Seeing Emperor Qin complain about Yuhaoran as if he were spoiling his own child, the young man standing in front of the desk chuckled. Imperial Father, I'm now very interested in this future brother-in-law of mine. You can go and take a look, but you absolutely cannot interfere. Hearing that the young man wanted to get acquainted with Yuhaoran, Emperor Qin thought for a moment, then nodded in agreement while sternly exhorting him. Imperial Father, I understand. The young man knelt on one knee and left the study. Steward Jiang. After the young man left the study, Emperor Qin immediately shouted at the door. Your Majesty! When Chief Steward Jiang heard the summons, he immediately answered respectfully. Set up the Yeren Palace. Emperor Qin ordered after getting up and leaving the dragon throne. Just now, the furious roar of the Wang family patriarch could be said to have resounded through the clouds. Ling Fei, who had been thinking about Yuhaoran, would definitely have heard it. With her current state of mind, she would definitely head to North City to meet Yuhaoran. She would also definitely clash with the Wang family. With the Wang family's foundation in Xianyang City and the war that had already begun, he would never allow any conflict between the imperial family and the Wang family. This was also the important reason why he asked the young man not to interfere. Therefore, he had to head to Yeren Hall to stop his daughter from wanting to leave the imperial palace and meet Yuhaoran. Understood. After Steward Jiang acknowledged the order, he immediately prepared all the necessary etiquette for the Holy Cross. Department of the Imperial Clan, Mansion Head Pavilion. The mansion head of the Department of the Imperial Clan, Qin Baijun, who was using pills to raise his mental state cultivation, suddenly felt a wave of frustration. Even with the cultivation of a quasi-martial honorable, he could not calm down. Qin Baijun knew that it was either because he had been too eager to raise his strength recently, causing a flaw to appear in his mental state, or danger was about to arrive. But no matter what the situation was, it was not suitable for him to continue cultivating in seclusion. Therefore, after Qin Baijun got up, he left the cultivation room and went to the courtyard in front of the pavilion. At this moment, he heard the angry roar of the Wang family patriarch. Yu Haoran had come. After hearing the angry roar of the Wang family patriarch, Qin Baijun immediately knew the source of his frustration. Thinking of the recent in-depth investigation of Yu Haoran, just like Emperor Qin Baijun knew that Yu Haoran, who had returned to Xianyang City, must have come prepared. Taking a deep breath, Qin Baijun ordered the guards guarding the pavilion in a low voice. Immediately summon the left and right mansion heads to see me. Meng family, Xingyun Pavilion. Meng Yun, who was sitting on a stone stool in the pavilion and reading The Art of War, suddenly put down the book in his hands in frustration. Then, Meng Yun took 3 deep breaths, forcibly suppressing the frustration that had just emerged in his heart. He picked up The Art of War book again, intending to continue reading. The frustration that had been forcibly suppressed not only resurfaced, but also made him feel a burst of panic. As a tactician who had survived the slaughter on the battlefield, Meng Yun knew that his current state foretold the arrival of danger. Closing The Art of War book and gently placing it on the stone table, Meng Yun closed his eyes and began to recall his actions in this period of time, searching for the reason that had caused him to panic. Apart from the assassination 3 days ago, he had not done anything that could cause him to panic. But that assassination, apart from himself and his absolute confidence, not only did no one else know about it, but he was also confident that he had not left behind any clues. However, it was always better to be safe than sorry. Therefore, Meng Yun got up and left the pavilion. He left the Meng family patriarch and went straight to the eastern district where the imperial family lived. Pure Source Guild Hall, Pure Elegance Pavilion. Feng Qinyun stood in front of the window of his bedroom in the pavilion, a gratified smile on his face as he watched his disciples exchange cultivation experiences. But when he saw that lonely figure standing in the courtyard and looking in the direction of the imperial clan court, Feng Qinyun couldn't help but sigh. Regret. Feng Qinyun felt both self-blame and regret for what had happened in Qingyuan Palace 9 days ago. He blamed himself for indulging his most favored disciple too much, causing him to act without scruples and without regard for the rules of the world. At the same time, he also deeply regretted that he had left him in the lurch, causing a gap between master and disciple. Yu Haoran, you dared to kill my grandson, dared to use my divine sense. This old man will hack you to pieces. Just when Feng Qinyun was sinking into self-blame and regret, the Wang clan ancestors' furious roar resounded in his ears. Appearing in the air above the Pure Elegance Pavilion, Feng Qinyun immediately spread out his divine sense and headed in the direction of the northern district. Standing alone in the courtyard, Wu Jingjun exuded an extremely cold aura, but when he heard the furious roar, his cold aura was greatly restrained. Then, he soared into the air, completely ignoring Feng Qinyun as he flew toward the northern district. As for Chu Zhongyu and the others, who were exchanging cultivation experiences in the pavilion, when they heard the furious roar, they were stunned for a moment, and then a trace of awkwardness flashed across their faces. But at Lin Xian's suggestion, they hurriedly left the pavilion and waited for Feng Qinyun's orders. Your 9th junior brother has returned and is currently in the northern district, Feng Qinyun explained when he saw his disciples walk out of the pavilion. Then, he thought for a moment before giving an order. The enemy your 9th junior brother is facing this time is not only powerful, but also has a deep background. They are not people you can provoke. Chapter 784. Xianyang City, North City Gate. You Howren, how dare you kill my grandson and destroy my divine sense? I'm going to chop you into pieces. Accompanied by a roar that reverberated through the clouds, a white figure soared into the sky and quickly rushed towards the north city of Xianyang City. Brother Yu, this person is very powerful. Let me deal with him. Zhai Xing, who had appeared beside Yu Haoren in a flash, suggested eagerly when he sensed the powerful strength of the white figure that was charging towards them. Brother Feng, you are my trump card against the Imperial Clan Court. Unless it is absolutely necessary, try not to reveal your true strength. Yu Haoren shook his head and rejected Zhai Xing's suggestion. So, let me deal with this old man. After saying that, Yu Haoren directly took out his purple cudgel and soared into the sky with a roar, taking the lead to attack. Old man, give me your life! Boom! The purple cudgel, which had automatically elongated, slammed heavily onto the unprepared white figure like a mountain under Yu Haoren's power that was close to that of a quasi-martial exalt. Accompanied by a deafening roar, the white figure was heavily smashed down by the purple cudgel. Then, like a falling star, he directly smashed into the hard ground, instantly stirring up a large amount of dust. Sizzle! As the white figure landed heavily on the hard ground, no one knew whether he was dead or alive. Suddenly, there were sounds of people sucking in cold breath. Although the white figure had been so fast that no one could see his appearance clearly, from the angry roar that had resounded through the clouds and the position where the white figure had rushed out from, everyone knew that the white figure had rushed out. Everyone present knew that the white figure who had been smashed down was the second strongest person in the first-rate family of Xianyang City, the Wang family's ancestor, who was only below the quasi-martial exalt realm. Even the Wang family's ancestor, who was at the peak of the 9th-grade martial saint realm, was not a match for Yu Haoren's cudgel. Could it be that Yu Haoren's true cultivation had already broken through the quasi-martial exalt realm? However, wasn't Yu Haoren a peak martial grandmaster who was proficient in alchemy? How could his achievements in martial arts be so terrifying? Moreover, how old was Yu Haoren this year? On the roof of a restaurant about 1,000 meters away from the battle, Feng Qingyun's eyes widened in shock. Disbelief flashed in his eyes. If Yu Haoren had used a transformation secret art, sending the Wang family ancestor, a peak 9th-grade martial saint, flying after transforming into a beast, while he would have been shocked as well, he would have been able to accept it at the very least. But now, as his master, he was no longer a match for his disciple. Did he still have the qualifications and ability to discipline and restrain him? On the third floor of the restaurant where Feng Qingyun stood, a youth who looked 90% similar to the Qin Emperor held a wine cup in his hand. He was also looking at Yu Haoren, who was holding a purple staff and standing in the air, with a shocked expression. Bang! Because he was too shocked, he did not control his strength and crushed the wine cup in his hand. The sound of the wine cup breaking woke the young man from his shock. Looking at Yu Haoren's young face, the young man shook off the dust from the broken wine cup and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Ling Fei has good eyesight, good fortune. Hearing the gasps of the crowd, Yu Haoren looked in the direction where the Wang family's ancestor had fallen. His heart was as calm as water. Damn it! It didn't take long, only 5 or 6 seconds. Accompanied by an unusually angry curse, an old man in a white robe with silver hair and a childlike face soared into the sky from where he had fallen. Sky shrouding sun. Just as the silver-haired old man soared into the sky, Yu Haoren, who was holding the purple cudgel, instantly appeared above the silver-haired old man. The continuous attacks of the cudgel caused the silver-haired old man to be busy defending while his body continued to fall. Although the possession technique gave him the attack power of a quasi-martial saint, it was limited by his own cultivation. He couldn't easily use the power of the laws controlled by the Thaling. Otherwise, the backlash from the power of the laws could very well break his meridians and destroy his sea of consciousness and dantian. As for martial sages, other than their stronger soul and Yuan Li, the only thing that could truly surpass martial emperors was the power of the laws that they had comprehended. Therefore, if he wanted to defeat and kill the Wang family's ancestor, he couldn't give him the chance to use the power of the laws. Otherwise, with the Wang family's ancestors' true strength after using the power of the laws, he could only let the Thaling control his body. The hundreds of cudgel techniques that were executed in an instant caused the Wang family's ancestor to be surrounded by countless purple cudgel attacks. He didn't even have the chance to take out his natal magic artifact to counterattack, let alone use the power of the laws that he had comprehended. Boom! Boom! 2 consecutive cudgel attacks landed on the Wang family's ancestor's back, causing him to spit out 3 mouthfuls of blood. At the same time, he knew that he had to escape from the attacks of the cudgel technique. Otherwise, without being able to use his strongest technique, he could very well die here. Therefore, the Wang family's ancestor used his soul power and Yuan Li at the beginning to forcefully endure the 3 heavy blows from the purple cudgel attacks and barely managed to escape from the attacks of the cudgel techniques. However, although he successfully escaped from the attack range of the cudgel techniques, the Wang family's ancestor was in an extremely sorry state. He spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood, staining the white robe in front of his chest. After being hit by the cudgel techniques on his back, not only was his robe torn, but his exposed back was also stained with blood. His originally coiled silver hair was knocked out by the cudgel techniques, causing his hair to be disheveled like a ghost. "Yu Haoran, you deserve to die." A long spear that was as lustrous as silver hair appeared in the Wang family's ancestor's hands. Through the gaps in his long hair, he cursed in a low voice. Seeing that the Wang family's ancestor had escaped from his cudgel attacks, Yu Haoran sighed in pity. At the same time, he secretly reminded Thaling to prepare, and the purple cudgel that he held tightly began to dance again. Seeing Yu Haoran continue to attack without saying a word, the Wang family's ancestor, who was holding tightly onto his spear, also calmed down his anger. Then, he calmly faced the purple cudgel. Chop, flick, stab, smash, and other basic cudgel and spear technique. This made everyone gradually realize that the higher the grade of a martial skill, the stronger the power, and the greater the lethality. If one could fully comprehend a basic martial skill, then the power that a basic martial skill could unleash would not lose to an earth or heaven tier martial skill. He's really messing with the enemy. Using the sharpness of the spearhead to force Yu Haoran to withdraw his cudgel to protect himself, the Wang family's ancestor's spear directly appeared in front of his heart with a simple stab. Phoenix Dance Soaring Dragon. Chapter 785. Xianyang City, North City Gate. After the sure-kill spear technique failed, the Wang family's ancestor used the recoil from the collision of the spear and rod to quickly retreat a distance. Then, he looked up and down at Yu Haoran and couldn't help but praise. "Yu Haoran, I didn't expect this. I really didn't expect this. Not only do you have amazing talent in alchemy, but your understanding of martial arts is also not inferior to your achievements in alchemy. If you didn't kill my grandson Ijua, if you didn't destroy the divine sense that I was guarding, I would definitely be friends with you and explore the mysteries of martial arts together." Facing the Wang family's ancestors' praise, Yu Haoran put away the purple rod and responded with a contemptuous tone. "Friends with great age. I'm not interested and you're not worthy. Ha ha." Facing Yu Haoran's contemptuous response, the Wang family's ancestor also put away the silver-white long spear and said with a smile while tidying up the silver-white hair in front of his forehead. "Yu Haoran, through the fight just now I can clearly feel that the reason why you can have the strength of a peak 9th grade martial saint is probably because you used a secret technique that can increase your cultivation in a short time. I don't know how long this secret technique can last. Facing the Wang family's ancestors' criticism, Yu Haoran indifferently replied, "Enough to kill you." At the same time, he secretly informed Thaling to prepare to control the body. But facing Yu Haoran's request, Thaling didn't do it like before, but reminded him like an elder. "Yu Haoran, think carefully about how I used the power of law when I destroyed the commander puppet in front of the palace in the Mizar graveyard." "Thaling, what do you mean?" Yu Haoran didn't understand Thaling's strange reminder and asked. "Yu Haoran, because the main body Victor and I have stayed in your sea of consciousness for a long time, our auras are closely connected." In the face of Yu Haoran's questioning, Thaling was like a tireless teacher, patiently and meticulously explaining. "Therefore, the closely connected aura and the power of my spirit will allow you to unleash the power of the laws to the greatest extent. As long as you don't recklessly use the power of law you've grasped and only use the power of law you've comprehended, the backlash from the power of law will at most cause you minor injuries." After listening to Thaling's patient and detailed explanation, although Yu Haoran was very moved, he was more worried and unconfident. After all, he was still traumatized by the old man's impulsive display of the power of laws outside Xianyang City and the heavy injuries he suffered afterwards. "Thaling, what if I can't control my actions and end up using the power of law you've grasped?" Hearing the worry and lack of confidence in Yu Haoran's tone, Thaling continued to patiently explain. "Yu Haoran, thanks to the cultivation experience of the peak of the 9th grade Martial Emperor realm in your previous life, as well as the fate of endless fortuitous encounters in this life, the Martial King and Martial Emperor realms won't take up too much of your time. I believe that in 1 or 2 years at most, you'll definitely face the breakthrough of the Martial Saint realm." At this point, Thaling took a deep breath and said with an expectant tone, "Yu Haoran, I hope that you can use this opportunity to use the power of law to lay the most solid foundation for comprehending the power of law that suits you in the future." "Thaling, thank you." Thaling's further explanation and expectation made Yu Haoran finally decide to use the power of law. At the same time, his heart was filled with endless gratitude. Unlike Feng Qinyun, who kowtowed to him, Thaling, who never made any promises, was more like a master who valued him highly and a father who doted on him. Forcibly suppressing the excitement in his heart, Yu Haoran thanked him and began to recall the power of law that Thaling comprehended in front of the palace in Mizang Tomb. How should he put it? When he felt the power of law that Thaling comprehended, an indescribable strange feeling made his mind feel as if it had gone through 1,000 years of baptism, exuding an aura of vicissitudes of life, as if he had seen the past. "Kill me!" Facing Yu Haoran's overconfident counterattack, the Wang family's ancestor couldn't help but laugh as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. "Ha ha!" After laughing for nearly a minute, the Wang family's ancestor suddenly stopped laughing and said with an incomparably sharp look in his eyes, "Yu Haoran, even if the secret technique you used could give you the strength of a peak 9th grade martial saint, even if the secret technique you used could last for a long time, but the flaw of not being able to use the power of law will make you never know how powerful a martial saint who comprehended the power of law is." The Wang family's ancestors' sharp words just now were not empty words, which resonated with many martial saint experts present. Because no matter how heaven-defying the secret technique was, it was affected by the user's own cultivation. With Yu Haoran's cultivation in the Martial King realm, and without being familiar with the power of law, he didn't have the ability to use the power of law that was exclusive to experts in the Martial Saint realm and above. Facing the Wang family's ancestors' sharp words, Yu Haoran, whose eyes were tightly closed, didn't make any counterattack. Because through the feeling of Thaling using the power of law to deal with the commander-level puppet in the space of the Kaiyang tomb, he gradually grasped a trace of the essence of the power of law. Although this trace of essence couldn't let him comprehend the power of law in advance, it could guarantee that after using the power of law, he wouldn't suffer the backlash of the power of law. Seeing Yu Haoran, whose eyes were tightly closed, as if he had given up on resisting, the Wang family's ancestor vaguely felt a trace of uneasiness in his heart. Because according to his understanding of Yu Haoran, he knew that this young man in front of him was not a person who would give up easily. Then, with his eyes tightly closed, he must be preparing a trump card to capsize the boat. Worried that an accident might happen, the Wang family's ancestor immediately mobilized the power of law that he comprehended. With the power of law that he comprehended, coupled with the soul and essence of a peak 9th grade martial saint, he used his strongest martial skill. Endless slaughter. Accompanied by the Wang family's ancestors' low roar, a power that caused the hearts of countless people present to tremble gradually condensed into a physical object. It was an Azura with a slender body, sharp ears, and dazzling golden eyes. The Azura floating in midair couldn't be distinguished from its gender, nor could its depth be seen. However, the flickering red lotuses in its eyes caused the martial saints present to involuntarily take a few steps back. As for the cultivators below the martial saint realm, their bodies trembled as they knelt down on their knees or fell to the ground. Only those geniuses with strong wills could barely resist the evil aura of the red lotuses in the Azura's eyes. Chapter 786. Xianyang City, North City. In the sky above the North City, Meng Zhengkai, the ancestor of the Meng clan, praised with a trace of envy in his voice. Brother Zhengkai, you flatter me. Xian still has a long way to go before he can break through to the quasi-martial saint realm. A middle-aged man who looked much younger than the ancestor of the Wang clan said with a trace of pride and modesty in his polite words. Comprehending the power of law, and being able to condense the power of law and use it to control the power of law was an important symbol of breaking through to the martial saint realm. Wang Xian had comprehended the power of the law of slaughter through the battlefield. Among the thousands of laws in the profound sky continent, it was one of the most powerful offensive laws. As long as Wang Xian could break through to the quasi-martial saint realm, the Shura condensed by the power of the law of slaughter would be able to defeat a quasi-martial saint expert who had passed through the heart tribulation or the soul tribulation. If he could pass through the body tribulation, the soul tribulation and the heart tribulation, he would be invincible in the quasi-martial saint realm. As for the Wang family who had 2 quasi-martial saint experts, they would immediately be promoted to the ranks of the aristocratic families. They would be able to stand on equal footing with the Meng clan, Zhao clan, Li clan and Yen clan and obtain more benefit. Therefore, how could the true ancestor of the Wang clan, Wang Yonglin, who was unable to pass through the 3 tribulations of the quasi-martial saint realm, not feel excited and proud? Facing the pride in Wang Yonglin's modesty, Meng Zhengkai only chuckled and did not say anything. After that, he looked at the palace with a puzzled expression. He looked at the person who should be more worried about Yu Haoran's safety than him. Why hadn't he appeared yet? Inside the palace, Yaren Hall. Father, quickly save Yu Haoran. Seeing the Shura condensed by the law of slaughter, Qin Lingfei, who was restricted by Emperor Qin in Yaren Hall, pleaded with an anxious expression. Don't worry, Emperor Qin said as he reached out and pressed on Qin Lingfei's shoulder. Take a look at Yu Haoran's current state first. In fact, when Wang Xian used the law of slaughter to condense the Red Lotus Shura, Emperor Qin had already planned to save him. However, Yu Haoran, who had his eyes closed, through the mind tribulation and the soul tribulation, he could faintly feel a trace of an aura that even he felt fear from Yu Haoran's body. It was because of this aura that made him feel fearful that the Qin Emperor decided to continue observing. Father, Haoran must have been scared silly by the Red Lotus Azura's aura. That's why he closed his eyes and waited for death. Qin Lingfei, whose cultivation level was too low, could not feel the aura of fear like the Qin Emperor, so she thought that Yu Haoran was waiting for death. Ai. Of Fang Xian Shura Shuras has Fang Fangus Fei Er. First of all, Howren's isn't because he's scared silly by the Red Lotus Shura. Secondly, the Meng family's ancestor, Prince Yifeng, will definitely not leave Yu Haoren in the lurch. Finally, I won't make a move unless it's a last resort. After hearing Emperor Qin's explanation, although Qin Lingfei didn't continue to ask Emperor Qin to help, she still clenched her teeth and looked at Yu Haoren. Go. When the Red Lotus Shura condensed by the law of slaughter was completely formed, the Wang family's ancestor, Wang Xian, pointed at Yu Haoren and whispered. The Red Lotus in Shura's eyes immediately shot out an evil red flame that caused the entire world to change color. At this moment Yu Haoren, who had his eyes closed, slowly opened his eyes. Two vortexes appeared in his eyes that were filled with the vicissitudes of life. Whether it was the weak ordinary people or Meng Zhenkai, who had passed the body tribulation, when they saw the vortexes that appeared in Yu Haoren's eyes, they immediately felt as if their minds were being forcefully pulled into the vortexes. What was even more terrifying was the suction force formed by the vortexes. No matter if one used soul power, origin power, or even the power of law that they comprehended and controlled, they couldn't cut off the suction force of the vortexes on their minds. In the end, they could only watch their minds leave their bodies bit by bit. Fortunately, the evil red flame that Shura condensed by the law of slaughter had just arrived in front of Yu Haoren and temporarily covered the vortexes in Yu Haoren's eyes, allowing the minds of everyone present to temporarily escape the danger of their minds leaving their bodies. However, although they were temporarily out of danger, when they thought of the suction force that they couldn't get rid of just now, they were extremely shocked and couldn't help but take a few steps back. They also tried their best not to look at Yu Haoren and avoid looking at his eyes. This included Emperor Qin, who was in Yeren Palace with an extremely serious expression. Looking at the evil red flame in front of him, Yu Haoren opened his mouth and said one word. Keep. Following the soft word, the evil red flame in front of him was forcefully sucked into the vortexes in his eyes. When the evil red flame had completely merged into the vortexes, Yu Haoren slowly closed his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, the evil red flame had completely disappeared, and the vortexes in his eyes had also disappeared. With a cold gaze, he looked at the Red Lotus Shura that was floating in midair. Yu Haoren slowly raised his arm, extended his index finger, and said softly to the Red Lotus Shura, "Scars of time." Then, a strange energy that made everyone feel that time was passing quickly shot out from Yu Haoren's finger. The strange energy seemed to have directly passed through the restrictions of time and space and instantly appeared on the Red Lotus Shura. Accompanied by an extremely painful howl, the Red Lotus Shura that was floating in midair suddenly turned into a wisp of green smoke and disappeared on the spot. And just when the Red Lotus Shura was turned into a wisp of green smoke by the strange energy, the ancestor of the Wang family, Wang Xian, suddenly howled in pain like an Azura. Accompanied by the same painful howl, Wang Xian's entire body was instantly split into countless pieces. Then, each piece of the corpse would transform into a moving image. Through these moving images, everyone was shocked to see the famous ancestor of the Emperor Qin Kingdom, Wang Xian's illustrious life, a life filled with battles, and a life filled with countless stains. In the void above the North City, Meng Zhenkai suddenly felt a chill run down his spine as he watched the Red Lotus Shura turn into a wisp of green smoke and Wang Xian disintegrate into countless pieces. What kind of law was this? Why did it have such a strong power and such a strange ability? The other ancestor of the Wang family, Wang Yonglin, clenched his fists and looked at Yu Haoren with hatred in his eyes. Wang Xian, who had been disintegrated into countless pieces by the strange energy just now, was definitely not going to survive. This also meant that the hope of the Wang family's rise had been forcibly wiped out by Yu Haoren. Wang Yonglin wanted to avenge his son, but he knew that the Wang family, which had suffered a heavy blow, needed him, a quasi-martial venerable, to hold the fort. Chapter 787. Xianyang City, North City Gate. Wang Xian, who had been split into countless pieces, once again gathered together after his life was played out, and he stood there with a shocked expression. However, everyone present knew that he was dead from his lifeless aura. His soul had been completely destroyed. After killing Wang Xian, the ancestor of the Wang family, Yu Haoran slowly raised his head. His indifferent eyes also pierced through the restrictions of time and space, and appeared on Wang Yonglin, the ancestor of the Wang family, who was filled with hatred towards him. After seeing Yu Haoran's emotionless eyes, Meng Zhenkai, Prince Yifeng, and the other quasi-martial saint experts dodged in all directions like birds startled by the twang of a bow. They were worried that if Yu Haoran continued to use that strange power of law, he would accidentally injure them. Looking straight into Yu Haoran's indifferent eyes, Wang Yonglin could see the indifference towards all living things in his eyes. He could also see a strong killing intent towards himself. Without the slightest hesitation, Wang Yonglin overdrew half of his soul and fused it with the power of law he had comprehended. Then, he instantly turned into a bolt of lightning and disappeared from Xianyang City. Seeing Wang Yonglin disappear from Xianyang City in an instant, Zhai Xing's eyes immediately filled with a strong fighting spirit. This was because the power of law that Wang Yonglin had just used was also a power of law that helped increase one's speed. This made Zhai Xing, who comprehended the power of the Starfall law and helped increase one's speed, not want to compete. "Can you escape?" Facing Wang Yonglin, who had instantly escaped from Xianyang City, Yu Haoran said softly with an indifferent expression, "Scars of time." Then, he slowly raised his arm and pointed in the direction that Wang Yonglin had escaped in as he said softly. A strange power that could pierce through the restrictions of time and space instantly appeared on Wang Yonglin's body in a situation that no one could imagine. What happened next had already been witnessed by the other patriarch of the Wang family, Wang Xian. He retracted his outstretched fingers and then opened his palm. A gentle suction force directly merged the broken pieces back together. Then, a pure silver storage ring was sucked out from Wang Yonglin's body as he fell from the sky. Using the same method, Yu Haoran took Wang Xian's storage ring. Inside Yeren Hall, "Who?" Qin Lingfei couldn't help but heave a long sigh of relief when she saw Yu Haoran easily kill the two patriarchs of the Wang family. After that, she wanted to show off to Emperor Qin about how outstanding Yu Haoran was. She also wanted to take the opportunity to complain about his wrong decision of not doing anything during the engagement ceremony back then. However, she unexpectedly discovered that Imperial Father's solemn expression made the atmosphere in the entire Yeren Palace Hall become solemn. "Father, are you all right?" Qin Lingfei asked cautiously. "Sigh." With a soft sigh, Emperor Qin put away his solemn expression and looked at Qin Lingfei with a gratified smile on his face. "Serve Yu Haoran well in the future." After that, Emperor Qin got up and left Yeren Palace Hall and appeared in the sky above the Imperial Clan Court. "Serve." After hearing Imperial Father's instructions, Qin Lingfei immediately thought of that aspect. For a young girl who had never experienced that kind of thing, she felt shy and her heart was filled with endless expectations. After keeping the two storage rings he had just obtained into the victor, Yu Haoran said plainly, "Thaling, remove the possession technique." "Yu Haoran, how do you feel?" Thaling asked with a smile as he ended the possession technique. "Powerful, very powerful." Yu Haoran sighed in deep fear as he thought of the willpower that had forcibly taken away the life of living beings when he had used the law force to form the Mark of Time technique. "Are you interested in comprehending the law of time?" Thaling continued to ask. "I don't know." Shaking his head, Yu Haoran sighed softly. Although the law of time was very powerful and could even be said to be incomparably terrifying, when he comprehended the law of time, the indifference that emerged in his heart toward all living beings made him somewhat fearful. Thus, He had not made up his mind about whether or not he would comprehend the law of time in the future. After taking out several top-class pills from his storage ring and consuming them, he began to recover from the consumption of his spirit and yuan qi when he had used the law of time earlier. Then, he raised his head and looked in the direction of the imperial clan court, a strong fighting spirit gradually surging in his eyes. "Let's go." After turning his head to remind Zhai Xing and the other four, Yu Haoran strode toward the imperial clan court. The crowd in front of him automatically parted, as if they were welcoming an emperor, and lowered their heads respectfully and fearfully. Yu Haoran had just reached the end of the street, and was about to turn toward the imperial clan court when Feng Qinyun blocked his path. "Master!" Ever since Feng Qinyun had chosen to leave him in the lurch, and he had been forced to flee Xianyang City, Yu Haoran had been imagining what he would feel when he saw his master again. Would he choose to forgive Feng Qinyun for leaving him in the lurch, and resume their relationship as master and disciple, or would he lose his composure in grief and accuse Feng Qinyun of being heartless? But now that he was truly facing Feng Qinyun, Yu Haoran discovered that his current mood was completely different from what he had imagined. It was a kind of alienation and indifference that made him realize that it was impossible for him to return to the past when he was willing to give up everything for Feng Qinyun. Perhaps in the future, he would still help Feng Qinyun and continue to support Qinyun Peak, but it was impossible for him to be as wholehearted and selfless as before. "Haoran, come back to Qinyun Peak with your master." Sensing the alienation and indifference from Yu Haoran, Feng Qinyun blamed himself even more, and he couldn't help but want to take him back to Qinyun Peak and dissolve the barrier between them. "Master, it's too late." Shaking his head, Yu Haoran softly sighed and walked past Feng Qinyun toward the nearby imperial clan court. "Haoran, once you've resolved your grudge with the imperial clan court, don't forget to return to the Qingya Pavilion. Your fellow disciples and the Gongsun siblings are waiting for you." As he watched Yu Haoran walk past him toward the imperial clan court, Feng Qinyun knew that he could not continue to stop him. Otherwise, given Yu Haoran's personality, he really might end up completely breaking off all relations with him and Qinyun Peak. But he also did not want to lose his most valued disciple, nor did he want their relationship to grow more and more estranged. Thus, he wanted to use their deep brotherhood to move Feng Qinyun. Pausing, Yu Haoran's eyes flashed with hesitation. But when he thought of the disgust in their eyes when they saw him use the spirit-slaughtering pill to slaughter the experts of the imperial clan court, his hesitation immediately turned into determination. He hastened his steps toward the imperial clan court. "Now I can go help you, Yu Shixiang." Chapter 788. My apologies, I was delayed by some matters. The 6th chapter might be late, or I might have to push it to tomorrow. Xianyang City, in front of the imperial clan court. Dressed in armor forged from deep-sea Xian iron and wielding sabers forged from celestial stone, the 10,000 well-equipped soldiers of the city guard appeared in front of the palace of the imperial clan court. Then, under the command of their respective commanders, the 10,000 well-equipped soldiers formed a zigzag formation to protect the imperial clan court. At the head of the zigzag formation stood a commander wearing silver-white armor forged from starlight stone. He was a peak 9th grade martial saint. In the air above the imperial clan court, Emperor Qin's expression darkened when he saw that the city guards he had painstakingly raised to protect the imperial capital could be so easily mobilized by the imperial clan court. "Your Imperial Majesty, 15 years ago, I told you not to give the imperial clan too much power. Otherwise, with their wild ambitions, they will cause trouble sooner or later." Meng Zhengkai, who had also noticed the 10,000 city guards in front of the imperial clan court, complained to Emperor Qin with great dissatisfaction. "Now your Imperial Majesty has seen it." His dissatisfaction stemmed from the fact that many of the city guards in front of the imperial clan court were members of the Meng clan. and with Yu Haoran's lawless personality and unfathomable strength and methods, not many of the 10,000 elite soldiers in front of the imperial clan court would remain. When we first ascended to the throne, we were only able to quickly take control of the court and suppress the rebellion in the army because of the Empress Dowager's assistance. In the face of Meng Zhengkai's complaints, Emperor Qin was not angered. Instead, he began to recall the events after his ascension. Thus, we were grateful to the Empress Dowager and did not wish to go against her wishes. At this point, Emperor Qin's tone gradually grew heavier. But we never imagined that some people would take advantage of our respect for the Empress Dowager to commit such treacherous acts. It seems that if we want to resist foreign aggression, we must first pacify our internal affairs. Meng Zhengkai nodded in agreement with Emperor Qin's decision to punish the imperial clan, but he didn't say anything else. Instead, he focused on Yu Haoran, who had already arrived in front of the imperial clan court. "Brother Yu, things are a little troublesome." Zhai Xing couldn't help but frown as he looked at the 10,000 elite soldiers in front of the imperial clan court. Although most of the 10,000 elite soldiers in front of him were only martial kings and martial emperors, and were far from being comparable to the martial sage puppets in the military camp in Mizang Cemetery, they were different from the puppets that were refined using the debris of the stars. They were all living people. Moreover, it was a group of people with deep backgrounds. If all 10,000 elite soldiers were killed by the 5 of them, not only would it create a boundless sin, it would also offend countless generals of the Emperor Qin kingdom, as well as many aristocratic families. For a rogue cultivator like him, this was definitely a disaster that would bring him endless trouble. "Brother Feng, there is no need for you to deal with 10,000 elite soldiers." Hearing the fear in Zhai Xing's tone, Yu Haoran knew what he was worried about. Therefore, after guaranteeing that there was no need to deal with the elite soldiers, he pointed at the commander in silver armor standing at the front of the formation. "You just need to kill that commander for me in the shortest time possible." In fact, even if Zhai Xing didn't take the initiative to express his fear of killing 10,000 elite soldiers, Yu Haoran wouldn't have let them do it. This was because he knew the real reason why Qin Baijun had arranged for these elite soldiers, who were only martial kings and martial emperors, to guard the imperial clan court. It was nothing more than the hope that when they faced the elite soldiers guarding the imperial clan court, they would be able to kill without restraint. That way, they would be able to arouse the strong disgust of Emperor Qin and prevent him from interfering in the upcoming life and death battle. At the same time, they would also provoke the aristocratic families behind the elite soldiers. After hearing Yu Haoran's orders, Zhai Xing secretly sighed in relief. At the same time, he didn't want Yu Haoran to mistakenly think that he was afraid of Emperor Qin's imperial might and wanted to retreat. Therefore, Zhai Xing spoke confidently as he stared at the commander in front of the formation. "Although this armor is made of starlight stone and its defensive strength is equivalent to a high-grade Emperor defensive artifact, it relies on the power of starfall laws to increase its speed and attack power. 10 seconds. I only need 10 seconds to chop off this person's head." Yu Haoran nodded at Zhai Xing's confident reply. Then, he rose into the air and took out 36 black and white chess pieces from his storage ring. Then, he tossed the chess pieces into the air above the 10,000 elite soldiers and formed a seal with his 10 fingers. Formation. Following the seal and his command, the chess pieces instantly transformed into soldier puppets at the peak of first-grade martial saint. This is the long-lost secret technique of casting beans into soldiers. After seeing the 36 black and white chess pieces transform into soldier puppets, Prince Yifeng, who was fond of traveling and collecting mementos from different eras, cried out in astonishment. After hearing Prince Yifeng shout out the technique Yu Haoran had just used, Emperor Qin and Meng Zhengkai immediately looked at each other and discovered that their eyes were filled with the desire to possess the technique. As a secret curse technique that shook the ancient, middle, and late ancient times, although no one present had seen it before, They had all heard of this heaven-defying secret technique that was most suitable for the battlefield. If they could obtain the secret curse technique of casting beans into soldiers from Yuhauran's hands, then it would be an unimaginable heaven-defying aid to the ongoing battle. However, when he thought of how he had stood by outside the Qingyuan Hall without doing anything, the fire in Emperor Qin's eyes immediately subsided. After the 36 black and white chess pieces were all transformed into soldier puppets, Yuhauran took a deep breath and immediately integrated the 36 Heavenly Dipper array, which was famous during the Middle Ages, into the energy source of the soldier puppets by marking them with his divine sense. According to the formation that had been fused with the energy source, the 36 soldier puppets at the peak of first-grade martial saint fell into different square formations of the elite soldiers with their powerful cultivation. Then, the experts in the air and the spectators outside the imperial clan court were shocked and puzzled to discover that the 10,000 elite soldiers who had been waiting in formation all had confused expressions on their faces. Then, some of the hot-tempered elite soldiers began to kill and roar on the spot, as if there was an enemy attacking them in front of them. As time passed, more and more of the elite soldiers began to become irritable. However, there was something that made everyone even more puzzled. Whether it was the elite soldiers of the martial king realm or the generals of the martial saint realm. Regardless of whether they swung their sabers or used profound martial techniques, their feet did not leave the ground, nor did they use the slightest bit of soul power or yuan qi. Chapter 789. In the sky above the imperial clan court. Prince Yifeng, do you know what kind of formation Yuhauran just set up? Li Ziho, the ancestor of the Li clan, one of the 4 great clans of Xianying City and famous for his formations, asked expectantly. Shaking his head, Prince Yifeng replied with a wry smile. Grand Marshal Li, you should know that I just like to collect commemorative treasures from different periods. I'm not good at formations, nor do I like them very much. So, alas! Even the knowledgeable Prince Yifeng didn't know the origin of the formation Yuhauran had just used, so it was even more impossible for the others present to know. This made Li Ziho, who was obsessed with formations, sigh. This formation is called the 36 Dipper Formation. It's a famous trapping formation from the Middle Ages. It's also a top formation most suitable for killing on the battlefield. Just as Li Ziho was feeling disappointed and was about to use his divine sense to take a risk and check the operating principle of the formation, a voice suddenly explained. So it's householder Qing Lian, Brother Su. Hearing that someone knew the origin of the formation, Li Ziho hurriedly raised his head and saw that it was householder Qing Lian, Su Hongwen, who was more knowledgeable than Prince Yifeng. Soon after, Emperor Qin, Meng Zhengkai, Prince Yifeng, and many quasi-martial venerables present also hurriedly greeted him. After all, householder Qing Lian was not only a peak alchemy grandmaster, but his origins were also very mysterious. It was as if he knew everything in the world. Brother Su, can you explain the principle of the 36 Dipper formation further? Li Ziho, who was eager to understand the secrets of the formation and improve his formation cultivation, immediately asked after everyone had greeted him. In the face of Li Ziho's questioning, Su Hongwen only chuckled twice and then lowered his head to look at Yuhauran in the air. He didn't answer his question. Su Hongwen's action of ignoring him with a chuckle made Li Ziho realize that his questioning was too rash and even a little rude. He hurriedly apologized. Brother Su, I'm sorry. I was too rude. Withdrawing his gaze from Yuhauran, Su Hongwen said solemnly. Brother Li, it's not that I'm not willing to explain the principle of the 36 Dipper formation. It's just that the 36 Dipper formation is a top formation between the peak of the Earth stage and the early Heaven stage. Only a formation master who has reached the peak of the Grandmaster realm can set it up successfully. Although I know a thing or two about arrays, I am far from reaching the peak of the Array Grandmaster realm. Su Hongwen's explanation was like a thunderclap on a sunny day. Formation S Grandmasters Formation Formation Grandmaster Formation Grandmasters Formation Grandmasters Formations. The reason why everyone present knew, understood, and paid attention to Yuhauran was because of his astonishing talent in alchemy. He had already reached the peak of the Grandmaster realm at such a young age, and could refine the 5 lives profound gate pill and nirvana pill that even Grandmasters of the pill Dao were unable to refine. Earlier, Yuhauran had once again displayed his attainments in the martial Dao that weren't the slightest bit inferior to him, and even surpassed him in the Dao of pills, causing everyone to calm down the shock in their hearts with great difficulty. Now, he learned from Su Hongwen that in addition to being a peak Grandmaster in alchemy and martial arts, he was also a peak Grandmaster who was proficient in formations. Yuhauran's various performances could no longer be described as monstrous. If someone were to tell them that Yuhauran was the successor of an immortal or that Emperor Wu had been reborn, they would probably be able to accept it. In front of the Imperial Clan Court, seeing the 36 soldier puppets successfully trap the 10,000 elite soldiers using the Big Dipper formation and Zhai Xing successfully slay the commander of the peak 9th grade martial saint, Yuhauran slowly descended to the ground. After that, his will connected with the energy source of the 36 soldier puppets, and then he reached out his hand and shouted at the soldier formation in front of him. Split! To the shock of the experts in the void and the people present, the 10,000 elite soldiers trapped in the formation continued to maintain their formation and instantly opened up a path that led directly to the Imperial Clan Court. Let's go! Yuhauran turned his head to signal Zhai Xing and the others, then strode toward the gate of the court of Imperial Clan. Stop! However, just as Yuhauran arrived at the gate, a peak 9th grade martial emperor deacon of the Imperial Clan Court scolded him sternly. This is still the Imperial Clan Court, an important place in the Imperial City. It is not His Majesty's decree, Empress Dowager. Sister Frost. Yuhauran called out softly, ignoring the deacon's rebuke. A cold light flashed, and the deacon's voice suddenly stopped as he fell to the ground. Yuhauran coldly stepped over the corpse and strode into the Imperial Clan Court. After Zhai Xing's group of 5 followed closely behind and entered the residence, the door of the residence automatically closed heavily. At the same time, a faint white energy barrier enveloped the entire Imperial Clan Court. Damn it, it's a protective formation that can block out divine sense. The moment the gate slammed shut, the experts of the Martial King realm and above hurriedly used their divine sense to continue observing. However, they were blocked by the white energy barrier that rose from within the Imperial Clan Court. Some people who were familiar with the effects of the white energy barrier couldn't help but curse inwardly. After all, the battle to the death between Yuhauran and the Imperial Clan Court would be the highlight of today's conflict. It would also be the best opportunity to learn more about Yuhauran's trump cards. If not for the fact that the palace before them was the Imperial Clan Court that even Emperor Qin couldn't do anything to, they would have already invited array masters to try and break the protective formation. A standard 99-meter corridor led to a square that was more than 10,000 square meters in size. Yuhauran chuckled as he looked at the 81 sword guards standing upright on both sides of the corridor, each holding a low-grade martial emperor sword in their hands. He stepped onto the corridor. Swish! Just as Yuhauran stepped into the corridor, the 81 swordsmen immediately raised their swords. Then, the tips of the swords touched each other, and the warmth formed a sword net. A show of strength. Yuhauran couldn't help but sneer as he looked at the sword net in front of him. But is it useful? Then, he stepped into the sword net, completely ignoring the low-grade martial emperor sword above his head that could chop down at any moment. On the other hand, Zhai Xing and the other 4 looked at each other. They weren't as careless as Yuhauran. Instead, they mobilized all of their soul force and origin energy. After making sufficient preparations for defense, they stepped into the sword convergence. They walked all the way to the end of the corridor, but the swords above their heads didn't fall. There weren't many people in the center of the square at this moment. There were only about 100 people in the square. However, these mere 100 or so people caused the expressions of Zhai Xing and the other 4 who had just passed through the sword gathering to instantly turn solemn. "Brother Yu, this is a little tricky," Zhai Xing said fearfully as he looked at the 100 people in the square. Chapter 790. At the edge of the square of the Imperial Clan Court. Looking at the 100 or so people in the square, Yu Haoran's expression remained indifferent. However, he felt the same as Zhai Xing and the others, that the situation was extremely troublesome. According to his original plan, after charging into the Imperial Clan Court openly, Zhai Xing, who possessed extreme speed, would deal with the experts above the 9th grade Martial Saint realm of the Imperial Clan Court. Frost, Jade Blood, and 100 Flowers would assist the 5 Scatter and use the hundreds of poisonous beasts sealed in the book to trap the remaining Martial Saint. Finally, he would use a special method to trap Qin Baijun. Then, he would burn a large amount of high-grade 4th-grade spirit stones to activate the might of the whip. With this, he would be able to kill the quasi-martial exalt Qin Baijun. However, Yu Haoran had never imagined that the hidden strength of the Imperial Clan Court would be so great. The number of experts at the peak of the 9th grade Martial Saint realm far exceeded his expectations. Just the peak of the 9th grade Martial Saint realm alone numbered 5. The left and right sect medallions standing at Qin Baijuan's sides were no weaker than Zhai Xing. With just these 5 people, it would already be very good for Zhai Xing to be able to rely on his extreme speed to protect himself, let alone the 11 9th grade Martial Saint. "Yu Haoran, why don't we use the possession technique?" Thaling, who had also discovered that the situation was beyond his expectations, could not help but suggest. Although using the possession technique twice in a day was a great test for Yu Haoran's physical endurance and the exhaustion of his soul, it seemed that this was the only way to resolve the current predicament. Not responding to Thaling's suggestion, Yu Haoran quickly thought of a way to deal with the 100 or so people in the square. Actually, Thaling's suggestion was the fastest way to resolve the grudge between him and Qin Baijun. After all, Qin Baijun, who had also yet to undergo the 3 tribulations of the quasi-martial exalt realm, was not much stronger than the Wang family's ancestor Wang Yonglin. A single scar of time could completely extinguish his soul. However, Yu Haoran did not want to use this trump card for the time being. Firstly, he discovered that using the power of the scar of time was a terrifying drain on Thaling's soul. If he continuously used the possession technique, and used the power of the scar of time, it might damage Thaling's soul and hinder his recovery of Emperor Wu's soul. Secondly, Qin Baijuan's reaction was rather strange. Logically speaking, he had killed 2 ancestors of the Wang family in succession, especially Wang Yonglin, who was also a quasi-martial exalt. Qin Baijun, who had been monitoring Qin Baijun, should have fled the Imperial Clan Court as soon as he could and escaped from Xianyways. Thaling's scar of time was of time, Wang of time, of time, of time, of time, was of time, of time, martial domain sex, of time, scar of time. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, he did not intend to continue using the possession technique, nor did he want to use the Law of Time's mark to harm the Tower Spirit. 9 heavens! Just as Yu Haoran was thinking about countermeasures to deal with the predicament before him, Qin Baijun, who was sitting on an armchair in the middle of the square, suddenly spoke. "Yu Haoran, in just 9 days, you were forced by this palace master to use a secret technique to escape from Xianyang City and Emperor Qin's kingdom. Not only have you returned in broad daylight, but you also possess the strength to kill this palace master." At this point, Qin Baijun raised his head and looked at Yu Haoran. There was a hint of approval in his tone. "I have to say, Yu Haoran, you are the most monstrous genius of all the countless geniuses this palace master has ever seen. In that case, I must thank Palace Master for your praise just now. Yu Haoran, who had already thought of a countermeasure, couldn't help but tease Qin Baijun. You have the cultivation of a peak Grandmaster of Alchemy and a peak Grandmaster of Formations, and you possess the means to easily kill a quasi-martial exalt. Qin Baijun wasn't angered by Yu Haoran's teasing. Instead, he nodded in agreement. Yu Haoran, you are indeed worthy of my praise. Although Yu Haoran did not know why Qin Baijun kept praising him, the grudge between them made him want to continue mocking Qin Baijun. From your tone, Palace Master, could it be that you intend to admit defeat and kowtow to apologize? Qin Baijun's face instantly darkened when he heard Yu Haoran's sarcastic teasing. His voice was filled with a strong murderous aura. Yu Haoran, although you are very outstanding, you are far from qualified to make me, Qin Baijun, admit defeat. Then, Qin Baijun waved his hand at the left and right palace masters and the other martial grandmasters of the imperial clan court. Over 100 martial sages immediately rushed toward Yu Haoran and the others who were standing at the edge of the square. However, regardless of whether it was the palace masters who were peak 9th grade martial sages or the deacons who were early 1st grade martial sages, their attacks all avoided Yu Haoran. This was because they were afraid of Yu Haoran's ability to disintegrate their physical bodies and derive their life experiences. After all, no one was a saint in terms of morality. Their life experiences couldn't be perfect. They didn't want their souls to be unable to find peace after they died. Fight! Zhai Xing gritted his teeth and growled as he saw over 100 martial sages rushing toward him. Wu San, Bing Shuang, Bai Hua, and Bai Shui also took out their life weapons and looked like they were going to fight with their lives on the line. However, Yu Haoran shook his head at them and said, "You don't have to do anything for the rest of the battle." Under the puzzled gazes of Zhai Xing and the others, Yu Haoran took out a pill bottle from his storage ring and poured out the 5 lives profound gate pill. Then, he said to the void above his head, "One 5 lives profound gate pill in exchange for the right to suppress the martial sages of the imperial clan court." They didn't have to deal with the quasi-martial exalt Qin Baijun, nor did they have to kill over 100 martial sages who had been carefully nurtured by the royal family. Faced with Yu Haoran's suggestion, the experts in the void were all tempted. However, there was one person who was not only tempted, but also immediately took action. Scram to the side for this old man. The Meng family's ancestor, Meng Zhenkai, instantly appeared in front of Yu Haoran. He glared angrily at the 100 martial sages who were rushing over and yelled harshly. The 100 martial sages immediately turned their heads to look at Qin Baijun as if they had slammed on the brake. When he saw Meng Zhenkai standing in front of Yu Haoran, Qin Baijun asked with a gloomy expression, "Marshal Meng, could it be that you intend to interfere in the grudge between me and Yu Haoran?" "Xiao Jun, your uncle Zhenkai is already old. I just want to live a few more years in peace." Faced with Qin Baijun's question, Meng Zhenkai took advantage of his seniority and said, "The 5 lives profound gate pill in the hands of the Grandmaster is the miracle pill that can allow your uncle to live a few more years." Chapter 791. In the square of the Imperial Clan Court. Qin Baijun was so angry that he was at a loss for words when he saw Meng Zhenkai trying to take advantage of his seniority. Although Meng Zhenkai was 1 generation older than him, there was only a difference of 20 to 30 years between them. For a martial sage who had a lifespan of almost 1,000 years, 20 to 30 years was enough for him to be considered a peer. Therefore, Meng Zhenkai did not have the right to take advantage of his seniority. Furthermore, Meng Zhenkai had already passed the body tribulation, which was the most difficult of the 3 tribulations of the quasi-martial honorable realm. His lifespan had been extended further and was even longer than Qin Baijun's. Meng Zhenkai was using his lifespan as an excuse to suppress his subordinate's attack. It would be strange if Qin Baijun was not angry. "What? Do you have a problem with that?" Meng Zhenkai, who had originally looked worried, was immediately enraged when he saw Qin Baijun pointing at him. "Do you think that your uncle is old and can't control you?" Meng Jingkai suddenly took a step forward, and a powerful aura, which could stir the wind and make the river flow backward, pounced on the martial sages like a ferocious beast. "Meng Jingkai, don't forget that the children of the Meng family who married into the imperial clan are under the jurisdiction of the imperial clan court." Qin Baijun was so angry that he could not help but use his descendants to threaten Meng Jingkai. His subordinates, whom he had carefully trained, were either crawling on the ground or kneeling on the ground under the pressure of Meng Jinkai's powerful aura. "How dare you threaten me?" When he heard that Qin Baijun was threatening him with the descendants of the imperial clan, a strong murderous aura condensed into a colorful tiger above his head. "Roar!" The multicolored tiger roared at the sky, then glared at Qin Baijun. "Senior Meng." Yu Haoran did not know whether to laugh or cry when he saw that Meng Jingkai was about to attack Qin Baijun with a strong murderous aura. He had originally intended to give the 5 Lives Mystery Gate elixir to Feng Qinyun to restrain Qin Baijun's subordinates so that they would not disturb his battle with Qin Baijun. However, he never expected that Meng Jingkai, who had an outstanding mental state, would be so easily angered. However, Qin Baijun was the opponent. He needed to fulfill his promise with Qin Lingfei and eliminate his inner demons. Therefore, he had no choice but to remind him. "Grand Master Yu." Meng Jingkai turned his head and greeted with a gentle nod while controlling the multicolored tiger that was condensed from a strong murderous aura. "He's mine." Pointing at Qin Baijun, Yu Haoran reminded. "Little Jun, I'll let you off for now on account of Grandmaster Yu." With Yu Haoran's reminder, Meng Jingkai immediately realized that he had flattered the wrong person. He quickly turned around and tried to defuse the situation. "If you are lucky enough to survive under the hands of Grandmaster Yu, then this old man will definitely let you know the consequences of threatening me. Senior Meng, here you go." Seeing the tiger dissipate and Meng Jingkai withdraw his murderous aura, Yu Haoran directly handed the 5 Lives Mystery Gate elixir to him. Yu Haoran's act of gifting the 5 Lives Mystery Gate elixir made Emperor Qin, who was hovering in the void above the imperial clan court, frown. The reason why he could barely suppress Meng Jingkai was because he had passed one more tribulation than him. If Meng Jingkai used the 5 Lives Mystery Gate elixir to successfully pass the heart tribulation, then the strength of the two would be reversed, and he would be the one who would be suppressed. In order to avoid being suppressed by the Meng ancestor, he must find a way to pass the last tribulation of the 3 tribulations, which required Yu Haoran's Ice Heart Jade Bone elixir. In that case, he needed to ensure Yu Haoran's safety and lend a hand when Yu Haoran was in danger. As he thought of this, Emperor Qin looked at Yu Haoran with a hint of dread in his eyes. "Grandmaster Yu, don't worry. This old man guarantees that these people will not disturb you." Ecstatic, Meng Jingkai took the 5 Lives Mystery Gate elixir and patted his chest in assurance. "If anyone dares to make a move, this old man will immediately kill them. Sorry to trouble you, senior." Yu Haoran thanked Meng Jingkai and motioned for the 5 of them to wait where they were. Then, he strode towards Qin Baijun. "Yu Haoran, you dared to face me directly because you relied on the power of laws that can decompose physical bodies." Qin Baijun hurriedly suppressed his hatred for Meng Jingkai when he saw Yu Haoran striding towards him and spoke with a mocking expression. "That's right." In the face of Qin Baijun's mockery, Yu Haoran nodded indifferently in order to find out more details and trump cards. Moreover, he was blatantly threatening Qin Baijun. "Just by relying on the power of laws, I won't be able to take your life. Moreover, I'll be able to personally witness your life experiences and see if there are any unspeakable secrets in these experiences. Yu Haoran, what if this power of laws is useless against me?" In the face of Yu Haoran's threat, although Qin Baijun's expression did not change at all, a trace of panic flashed across his eyes. After all, there were 3 secrets in his life that could not be exposed even if he died. Otherwise, not only would his bones be ground to dust, but all the relatives that belonged to his bloodline inheritance would also be slaughtered by Emperor Qin. Qin Baijun took a deep breath and suppressed the panic that had just emerged in his heart. He then took out an umbrella-shaped artifact with talismans stuck on it from his sleeve. Just as Qin Baijun took out the umbrella-shaped artifact, Yu Haoran heard Meng Jinkai's gasp behind him, and the aura above his head suddenly became heavy. In the void above the Imperial Clan Court, looking at the umbrella-shaped artifact in Qin Baijun's hand with talismans stuck on it, Emperor Qin's face was so gloomy that it seemed as if it could drip water. His tightly clenched fists were even more evidence of his unusual anger at this moment. Not far from Emperor Qin, Prince Yifeng's expression was also very ugly. From time to time, he would raise his head to look in the direction of the imperial palace with a trace of disgust in his eyes. Primordial Gauze Umbrella, this is a complete supreme-grade artifact of the Venerable Realm. Su Hongwen, who also recognized the umbrella-shaped artifact, muttered to himself. Then, he immediately used his spiritual sense to inform Yu Haoran below the void. Master Yu, this old man is householder Qinglian, Su Hongwen. Su Hongwen immediately reminded Yu Haoran when he sensed that Yu Haoran was mobilizing his spiritual sense to reply to him. Master Yu, you don't need to reply. You just need to listen to this old man. The artifact in Qin Baijun's hand is called the Primordial Gauze Umbrella. It can absorb the power of the stars in the sky to provide energy. It's also a supreme-grade defensive artifact of the Venerable Realm that has the means to defend and kill. Master Yu, if you can't go against it, you should temporarily avoid its edge. It's the foundation of the world. Senior Su, thank you for your reminder. In the face of Su Hongwen's reminder and persuasion, Yu Haoran was moved and thanked him. Then, he raised his head to look at Qin Baijun and the primordial gauze umbrella in his hand, and said confidently. Chapter 792. In the square of the Imperial Clan Court. Yu Haoran, do you know the origin of this umbrella artifact in my hand? Qin Baijun asked arrogantly as he held up the primordial gauze umbrella with talismans in his hand. Tisk, isn't it just a supreme-grade Venerable Realm primordial gauze umbrella that can defend and kill? What's there to be proud of? Yu Haoran replied disdainfully. At the same time, he immediately communicated with the portrait in his storage ring. Senior Qingju, according to the agreement between you and me, if you help me kill my enemy, I will send you back to your descendants in the future. Now, I've already fought with my enemy. But to my surprise, my enemy has a supreme-grade Venerable Realm artifact that can absorb the power of the stars. So, I urgently need to borrow your supreme-grade Venerable Realm artifact. After hearing Yu Haoran's request, the portrait lying on the floor of the storage space immediately floated up. Without needing Yu Haoran to control it, it left the storage ring and floated in front of him. Seeing that the portrait was even more eager to fight than him, Yu Haoran was secretly proud and grateful to Su Hongwen. If Su Hongwen had not reminded him in time that the primordial gauze umbrella could absorb the power of the stars, the Qingju Emperor Wu's severed hand in the portrait would not have left the storage ring in such a hurry. In the following battle, he might not even need to pay a single spirit stone. After all, the Qingju Emperor Wu, who had been killed by the Starsource Emperor, hated all martial artists who could use the power of the stars. This was the main reason why he had not let Jai Xing take action. Yu Haoran asked arrogantly as he reached out to grab the portrait floating in front of him. Just like Qin Baijun, whose face was flushed red from choking, he did not know whether to put down the primordial gauze umbrella or continue to hold it up. Qin Baijun, do you know the origin of the artifact in my hand? Yu Haoran imitated his actions just now and completely enraged Qin Baijun. He ordered his subordinates with a gloomy face. All of you, leave the square immediately. Some of the experts of the Imperial Clan Court, who knew about the origin sifting umbrella, immediately called out to their ignorant companions and ordered them to quickly leave the plaza. "You Howren, I'll let you know the consequences of offending me, Qin Bai Jun." He reached out and removed the talisman on the sifting essence umbrella. Then, he threw the sifting essence umbrella into the air. As the sifting origin umbrella unfurled, a terrifying energy that could shatter mountains and dim stars tore apart the protective array of the Imperial Clan Court. This is the aura of an Exalt-level magical artifact. Could it be that Yu Haoran has already used an Exalt-level magical artifact in his battle with the Imperial Clan Court? Just as the primordial gauze umbrella's aura tore apart the Imperial Clan Court's protective formation, a peak 9th grade martial emperor expert who was proficient in weaponry refinement immediately cried out in shock. That's right. An exalted realm artifact. Upon hearing the artificer's cry, everyone instinctively fled from the Imperial Clan Court, even leaving Xianyang City. This was because an Exalt-level magical artifact with its full power could completely destroy Xianyang City. After tearing apart the protective formation of the Imperial Clan Court, the terrifying aura emitted by the sifting origin umbrella continued to rise. Soon, it stirred up the void above the Imperial Clan Court, causing the dozens of quasi-martial exalts hidden in the void to either flee immediately. Otherwise, they could rely on their own strength to resist the pressure of the terrifying aura. Only Emperor Qin ignored the terrifying aura of the sifting origin umbrella. He gloomily looked at the sifting origin umbrella and the wildly laughing Qin Baijun. Yu Haoran took a deep breath as he sensed the terrifying aura rapidly approaching him. He slowly opened the portrait in his hand and respectfully requested, "Senior Qin Ju, please lend me your Exalt-level magical artifact." Following Yu Haoran's respectful request, the long whip that was originally in his broken hand quickly left the portrait and floated in front of Yu Haoran. However, after sensing the terrifying aura emitted by the sifting origin umbrella, especially the trace of star energy in the aura, there was no need for Yu Haoran to provide any energy. As the long whip quickly rose into the air, it directly exploded with an aura that was not inferior to the sifting origin umbrella. In fact, it was even slightly stronger. Could this be Emperor Wu's natal magic artifact? The soul-drawing whip that missed the opportunity to become an emperor weapon? The mysterious Su Hongwen involuntarily muttered to himself as he looked at the long whip magical artifact that had left the portrait and appeared in the air. Brother Su, who is Qin Ju Emperor Wu? Due to the excessive shock in his heart, he did not lower his voice when he muttered to himself. Prince Yifeng and the Li family ancestor, who were very close to him, had clearly heard his mutterings. Prince Yifeng, who liked to collect commemorative items from different periods, had taken a fancy to the extraordinary long whip at first glance. Thus he could not help but ask. Looking at Prince Yifeng's expectant eyes and the dozen or so quasi-martial saints who had dodged the sifting origin umbrella's aura, their attention was instantly focused on him. Su Hongwen knew that if he did not reveal the origin of the soul-drawing whip, not only would he not be able to explain himself, he would also offend these people. Therefore, Su Hongwen took a deep breath and said, "Don't worry. Qingju Emperor Wu is a new Emperor Wu from the era of the Star Source Great Emperor in the recent ancient era. However, for some unknown reason, Qingju Emperor Wu, who had just advanced to the realm of Emperor Wu, had a conflict with the Star Source Great Emperor. In the end, he died at the hands of the Star Source Great Emperor." At this point, Su Hongwen continued to explain as he pointed at the soul-drawing whip that was at the same height as the sifting origin umbrella and whose aura was gradually gaining the upper hand. This long whip magical artifact is called the soul-drawing whip. It specializes in drawing out the souls of living beings. If you are hit once, it will directly shatter one soul. If you are hit twice, you will shatter two souls. If you are hit 10 times, then your 3 souls and 7 souls will completely vanish into thin air. Originally, as the natal artifact of the Qing-Ju Emperor Wu, the soul-drawing whip had the hope of advancing to an emperor artifact. However, the Qing-Ju Emperor Wu had an accident too early, causing the soul-drawing whip to lose the most crucial part of advancing to an emperor artifact. In the end, it only stayed at the peak of the Venerable Realm. After hearing Su Hongwen's introduction, many experts felt pity for the Qing-Ju Emperor Wu and the soul-drawing whip. At the same time, they looked at Yu Haoran with envy and jealousy, but there was also fear and dread in their eyes. Being able to easily split the body of a quasi-martial saint was already difficult for the dozen or so quasi-martial saints present to accept. Now, he had the natal artifact of the Qing-Ju Emperor Wu from the recent ancient era. This kind of heaven-defying opportunity was probably not something that even the reincarnation of the immortal emperor or the rebirth of the Emperor Wu could have. Could it be that Yu Haoran was the son of the heavens, the illegitimate son of the heavenly law? Looking up at the sifting origin umbrella, whose aura was gradually being suppressed, Qin Baijuan's smug smile suddenly disappeared. Chapter 793. The Imperial Clan Court. With the full support of a quasi-martial honorable, the gauze yuan umbrella, which was gradually at a disadvantage, immediately burst forth with a stronger aura and began to suppress the soul whip. Energy support. Seeing the soul whip being suppressed, Yu Haoran sneered and took out 54th rank, first-grade spiritual stones from his storage ring. Without any hesitation, he threw the spiritual stones to the soul whip in the air. In less than a second, the spiritual liquid in the 54th rank, first-grade spiritual stones was instantly absorbed by the soul whip. Then, the soul whip burst forth with an even stronger aura and suppressed the gauze yuan umbrella again. The soul whip and the gauze yuan umbrella burst forth with an even stronger aura. Not only did the aura spread wider, but it also became more powerful. As a result, more than a dozen powerhouses standing in the void, except for Emperor Qin, had to leave the void and appear in the square of the Imperial Clan Court, standing behind Yu Haoran. Ha ha! Seeing that Yu Haoran was using 4th rank, first-grade spiritual stones to provide energy to the supreme-grade honorable realm weapon, Qin Baijun, who had a serious expression, could not help but chuckle. Yu Haoran, in terms of cultivation talent, hidden means, and trump cards, I, Qin Baijun, admit that I am not as good as you. But in terms of number of spiritual stones. With that, Qin Baijun waved his hand and 350,000 first-grade to 9th-grade spiritual stones piled up in front of him like a small mountain. Then, he waved his hand again and more than 300 4th-rank, first-grade to 3rd-grade spiritual stones appeared beside the pile of 5th-grade spiritual stones. Then, he looked provocatively at Yu Haoran. How could Yu Haoran, who had a high net worth, not fight back? He waved his hand and 500,000 5th-rank, first-grade to 9th-grade spiritual stones quickly piled up into a small mountain that was much larger than Qin Baijuan's 5th-grade spiritual stones. Then, he waved his hand again and more than 500 4th-rank, first-grade to 5th-grade spiritual stones appeared beside the pile of 5th-grade spiritual stones. Looking at the two of them competing with each other in terms of the number of spirit stones, especially when Yu Haoran took out far more spirit stones than Qin Baijun, many of the experts present were shocked, but they quickly regained their composure. He possessed a secret technique that could easily kill a quasi-martial venerable expert, as well as the natal ritual artifact of the late ancient Emperor Wu. It was completely normal for Yu Haoran to be able to easily take out a large amount of spirit stones that could assist in cultivation. Do you still want to compete? Yu Haoran taunted Qin Baijun, his eyes full of contempt. Let's do it. Qin Baijun gritted his teeth and said. Afterwards, He raised his head and was about to order his subordinates to go to the treasury of the Imperial Clan Court to retrieve the spiritual stones when he discovered that those people had already left the Imperial Clan Court due to the terrifying aura of the two supreme Exalt-level ritual artifacts. Qin Baijuan's expression immediately turned ugly. "What's wrong? Are you out of spirit stones?" Yu Haoran immediately pretended to be warm-hearted and concerned when he saw Qin Baijuan's ugly expression. Afterwards, he acted like a nouveau riche as he spoke. "It's all right. I'm so poor that I only have spirit stones left." At this point, Yu Haoran took out another 704th stage, 1st stage to 7th stage spirit stones in one go and expressed his stance very generously. "Otherwise, I'll lend you some. Yu Haoran, you deserve to die." Faced with Yu Haoran's blatant humiliation, Qin Baijun roared angrily and took out a pill that was almost transparent and gave off a strong medicinal fragrance. Then, he swallowed it. Afterwards, he bent his knees and sat cross-legged on the ground. He began to continuously provide origin energy and soul power to the sifting essence umbrella. 4th level 1st level Heaven Mend Pill. 4th level 1st level Heaven Mend Pill. Just as Qin Baijun took out the transparent pill and swallowed it, Yu Haoran and Su Hongwen shouted out the origin of the pill at the same time. Then, Yu Haoran looked up at Emperor Qin in the air. He did not hide the strong dissatisfaction in his eyes. Although the grade of the Heaven Mend Pill was not as high as the Icy Heart Jade Bone Pill or the Nirvana Pill, Yu Haoran could not refine it in his current situation. It was not that his alchemy skills were not good enough, nor was it that he lacked the spirit herbs needed to refine the Heaven Mend Pill. It was because refining the Heaven Mend Pill required the use of an Emperor-level pill furnace. Although there was more than one Emperor-level pill furnace in the entire Tianxian continent, only the Valley of the Medicine Masters had both a Grandmaster and an Emperor-level pill furnace. With the close relationship between the Valley of the Medicine Masters and Emperor Qin, there was no need to think too much. That Heaven Mend Pill should have belonged to Emperor Qin. Faced with the strong dissatisfaction in Yu Haoran's gaze, Emperor Qin, who was in the wrong, could only lower his head and avoid his dissatisfied gaze. Qin Baijun, although the 4th level 1st grade Heaven Mend Pill can keep you in peak condition for 5 minutes, after 5 minutes, the side effects of the Heaven Mend Pill will cause you to completely lose the ability to resist. When that time comes, you will be a fish on the chopping board, at my mercy. Yu Haoran reminded him with a cold smile as he withdrew his questioning gaze from Emperor Qin. "Yu Haoran, you can talk if you can hold on for 5 minutes. Qin Baijun retorted in response to Yu Haoran's threatening reminder. Looking up at the soul-drawing whip that had been suppressed again, Yu Haoran thought of the large amount of spirit stones he would have to pay. While feeling a pang of pain, he also decided that after killing Qin Baijun, he would return to his robber character from his previous life and empty the entire treasury of the Imperial Clan Court. "Yu Haoran, you don't need these spirit stones for the time being." Seeing that Yu Haoran planned to give all the spirit stones on the ground to the soul-drawing whip, Thaling reminded him in his awareness, risking being discovered by the broken hand of the portrait. "Could it be that I have other treasures that can provide energy support?" Yu Haoran immediately asked excitedly. "Have you forgotten about the spirit liquid extracted from the cave at the source of the upper 5th level spirit vein in the Blue Moon Secret Realm?" Thaling reminded him. If it weren't for Thaling's reminder, Yu Haoran really wouldn't have remembered. Back in the cave at the source of the upper 5th level spirit vein in the Blue Moon Secret Realm, he had used the dark green gourd he had obtained from the enchanted beast to store an entire cave's worth of spirit liquid. Thinking of this, Yu Haoran's consciousness immediately entered the storage space and finally found the dark green gourd in a corner. However, when Yu Haoran took out the dark green gourd, Bai Shui, who had been protected by Meng Zhenkai, suddenly became excited. He didn't hide his desire for the dark green gourd in the slightest. Opening the dark green gourd and aiming it at the soul-drawing whip in the air, Yuharan formed a hand seal and directly transferred the spirit liquid stored in the gourd to the soul-drawing whip. Although the purity of the spirit liquid was far inferior to the spirit country and yuan qi that Qin Baijun had provided, the unlimited amount of spirit liquid extracted easily made up for the difference. Chapter 794. In the square of the Imperial Clan Court. Sensing the change in the situation, Qin Baijun, who was originally full of confidence, suddenly became anxious. It was just as Yuharan had said. If the sky-gauging umbrella couldn't completely suppress and defeat the soul-extracting whip within 5 minutes, then the side effects of the heaven-mending pill would make him completely lose the ability to resist. Although he still had a trump card that could turn defeat into victory, he didn't want to use it unless it was absolutely necessary. After all, the side effects of that trump card were too great. Looking up at the sky-gauging umbrella, which was becoming more and more disadvantaged, Qin Baijuan's face flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. He clenched his left hand into a fist and slammed it on his chest, spitting out 3 mouthfuls of essence blood. Then, his divine sense controlled the essence blood and directly infused it into the sky-gauging umbrella. Qin Baijuan's actions caused the expressions of many experts to change. The hot-tempered Meng Zhengkai angrily reprimanded him. "Qin Baijun, are you crazy? Do you want to destroy the entire Xianying city?" Seeing the 3 drops of essence blood quickly infused into the sky-gauging umbrella, Yuharan's originally relaxed expression suddenly became serious. The aura competition just now was only the venerable realm's prestige contained within the magic tool itself. Although the power seemed terrifying, the damage caused was limited and was still within the range of what everyone could bear. However, fusing one's essence blood into a top-grade exalted realm magic artifact would awaken the artifact's spirit within the artifact. If the weapon spirit was completely awakened and personally controlled the magic tool itself, then the sky-gauging umbrella could become a peerless expert at the peak of the 9th-grade martial venerable realm. An expert of this level could destroy the Imperial Clan Court with a casual attack. A full-strength attack could even destroy the entire Xianying city, causing an incomparable massacre. "As long as I can kill Yuharan, even if I have to destroy the entire Xianying city, so what?" Qin Baijun said with a sinister expression in the face of Meng Zhengkai's angry questioning. "Just to kill Grandmaster Yu, can you bear to kill tens of millions of ordinary people in Xianying city?" Prince Yifeng, who rarely interfered in the affairs of the Imperial clan, couldn't help but shout loudly. "Yes," Qin Baijun replied with an unusually firm tone. "Crazy, you're really crazy," Prince Yifeng said through gritted teeth as he pointed at the sinister Qin Baijun. Facing Qin Baijun, who had completely fallen into madness, Meng Zhengkai, Prince Yifeng, Li Ziho, and the other dozen or so quasi-martial saint experts all wished that they could rush up and kill him right now. However, when they saw the artifact's spirit gradually awakening and the defensive energy that was projected from the sky gauze umbrella onto Qin Baijun, they could only watch helplessly. However, Emperor Qin, who had been standing in the void and using his own strength to resist the aura of the exalted realm Dharma artifact, suddenly spoke out to calm everyone down. "Meng Yuan Shi Yifeng, everyone, don't worry. Even if the weapon spirit of the sky-gauging umbrella awakens, it will not be able to destroy Xianying city." Along with the soothing voice, a sword that was emitting a faint purple light and was also covered in runes appeared in Emperor Qin's hand. He reached out and tore off the talisman on the sword, then threw it in the direction of the palace. When the sword appeared above Emperor Qin's study, which he usually used to deal with official business and rest, a purple light soared into the sky and then directly merged with the sword. At the same time, 11 rays of purple light rose from different directions of Xianying city. 11 rays of purple light soared into the sky and also merged with the sword floating above the study. The sword that had merged with 12 rays of purple light instantly transformed into a purple cloud that floated above the Imperial clan court. Chaos Origin Lock Formation. Su Hongwen muttered to himself as he looked up at the purple cloud and sensed the powerful energy that had locked down the entire Imperial clan court. Seeing that Emperor Qin had used the Chaos Origin Lock Formation to completely seal off the Imperial clan court, Yu Haoran inwardly heaved a sigh of relief and looked up at Emperor Qin. "Your Imperial Majesty, please escort my friends out of the Imperial clan court." Upon hearing Yu Haoran's request, Emperor Qin waved his hand without hesitation, and Zhai Xing's group of 5 instantly vanished from the Imperial clan court. After Emperor Qin escorted Zhai Xing's group of 5 out of the Imperial clan court, Yu Haoran took a deep breath and then pointed the portrait in his hand at the soul-whipping whip and the sky-gauging umbrella, his voice brimming with unwillingness. "Senior Qingju, take a look. Take a look at how your ritual tool, the soul-whipping whip, is suppressed by the sky-gauging umbrella, which contains the power of the stars and has gradually awakened its tool spirit. Are you willing to be suppressed, defeated, and even humiliated by an opponent who cultivates the power of the stars?" Yu Haoran's inexplicable actions caused the Tensum quasi-emperors present to reveal looks of confusion and incomprehension. They didn't understand why Yu Haoran was speaking to a portrait. But Su Hongwen was different. This was because Su Hongwen understood the grievances between Emperor Wu and the Star Source Emperor. Not only did he understand why Yu Haoran had looked at the portrait, but he also understood why Yu Haoran had repeatedly said that he relied on the power of the stars. As Yu Haoran continued to use words to provoke him, he also secretly channeled a trace of the power of the stars from his body into the portrait space. The severed hand, which had been quietly remaining on the portrait, trembled slightly. Then, the severed hand instantly left the space of the portrait and appeared in front of Yu Haoran. The moment the severed hand left the space of the portrait, the aura of Emperor Wu's realm not only caused all the quasi-emperors present to kneel on the ground in submission, but even Emperor Qin, who was in the air, was forcefully shaken off the clouds and ultimately fell into the Imperial clan court. "Senior Qingju, this person is still the leader of the spirit cultivators." When he saw Emperor Qin, who had fallen into the Imperial clan court, unyieldingly kneel under the pressure of the severed hand's aura, Yu Haoran immediately used the method of lying to remind him. As the supreme ruler of the great Emperor Qin kingdom, Emperor Qin could kneel to the heavens, to the earth, and to his parents. But he absolutely could not kneel to anyone else, even if that person was a peerless powerhouse on the same level as Emperor Wu. This was because this was related to the dignity of Emperor Qin as well as the heart of an emperor. If Emperor Qin chose to kneel in submission, then the destiny that the great Emperor Qin kingdom had obtained through conquering the world would not only not help him break through to a higher realm, but it would also aggravate his death and lead to the destruction of the great Emperor Qin kingdom. Thus, out of respect for Qin Lingfei, Yu Haoran had no choice but to step in and help. When he heard Yu Haoran's reminder, the pressure on Emperor Qin's body was not only quickly withdrawn, but a milky white energy shot out of the severed hand and fused into Emperor Qin's body. The injuries that had been caused by the pressure of the aura instantly healed, and at the same time, it also made up for the hidden dangers that had existed in his body during his previous cultivation. Chapter 795. Sorry, there was a sudden power outage at around 8 o'clock last night, so I couldn't finish writing the 6th chapter and upload it. In the square of the Imperial clan court. Because according to Emperor Qin's habit, when thanking the severed hand, he would always refer to himself as Emperor. The remnant consciousness of the Qingju Emperor Wu, who had died at the hands of the Star Source Emperor, was filled with endless hatred for everyone who called themselves Emperor. If Emperor Qin accidentally exposed his true identity, he would definitely incur the wrath of the severed hand. The enraged severed hand would not only kill him on the spot, but also implicate him. Therefore, the extremely nervous Yu Haoran had to take the risk of warning him with his eyes. Although Emperor Qin did not know why Yu Haoran did not want him to thank the severed hand, he knew that the severed hand would not harm him. Therefore, Emperor Qin finally withdrew his etiquette and silently walked to Yu Haoran's side. After using Emperor Wu's aura to suppress everyone present, the severed hand's attention immediately turned to the fully awakened Luotian umbrella. The fully awakened Luotian umbrella's weapon spirit also noticed the severed hand. After sensing that the severed hand was the remnant body of an expert of Emperor Wu's realm, the weapon spirit immediately controlled the Luotian umbrella's body and flew directly into the sky, intending to escape from the Imperial Clan Court and the severed hand's aura. Boom! But just as the Luotian umbrella reached the void, it directly hit a layer of faint purple clouds. With a deafening crash, the Luotian umbrella was bounced back to the Imperial Clan Court by the purple clouds. At this moment, the severed hand instantly appeared beside the Luotian umbrella and stretched out 5 fingers to grab the umbrella's rib. The terrifying power of Emperor Wu's realm firmly suppressed the weapon spirit of the Luotian umbrella, destroying its thoughts of escaping from the main body. 3 seconds. In just 3 seconds, the weapon spirit of the Luotian umbrella, which could display the power of a peak 9th grade martial venerable, was refined by the severed hand. The brief and thrilling confrontation between the broken hand and the Luotian umbrella made everyone present finally realize the vast difference in strength between Emperor Wu and the martial venerable realm. After easily refining the instrument spirit of the sky-gauging umbrella, the broken hand instantly returned to Yu Haoran. After throwing the sky-gauging umbrella to him, it directly returned to the space of the portrait. When the soul-whipping whip that was floating in the air returned to the space of the portrait and was once again grasped by the broken hand, the portrait automatically returned to the storage ring. Then, an invisible force sealed the storage ring. Sensing that the storage ring had been completely sealed, Yu Haoran understood the meaning of Emperor Wu's remains. It was nothing more than him fulfilling the agreement between them. No matter what danger he encountered in the future, it would not lend a helping hand. Only when he met a descendant of Emperor Wu would the same bloodline aura be awakened, and the seal would be automatically removed. Only then would the portrait leave the storage ring again. Not only was Yu Haoran not disappointed at all, he even secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he looked at the Luotian umbrella that the broken hand had given him as a gift. At this time, the Luotian umbrella had been sealed by the broken hand using Emperor Wu's aura and turned back to the size of a palm. It looked delicate and cute. After losing its spirit, the Luotian umbrella could continue to exert about 60% of its original power and could easily deal with experts of the martial venerable realm. However, Yu Haoran, who had seen the power of the awakened spirit, was not willing to let the Luotian umbrella become an ordinary martial venerable realm weapon. Thaling, how can the Luotian umbrella regain its spirit and recover the strength of a peak 9th grade martial venerable? There are 2 ways. The broken hand that had sealed itself made it unnecessary for the Thaling to continue hiding. Therefore, he returned to the sea of consciousness and replied with a smile. What are the 2 ways? Yu Haoran immediately asked in surprise. The first way is to merge with the spirit. Thaling said. What do you mean? Yu Haoran asked. The so-called merging with the spirit means to merge with an unconscious spirit of the same level as the Luotian umbrella. For example, you can refine the spirit of the upper rank 3 spiritual vein in the Medicine King's Valley and give it your own consciousness. Then, you can merge it with the Luotian umbrella and regain the strength of a peak 9th grade martial venerable. Thaling explained as he tried to persuade him. What about the second way? Yu Haoran did not even consider Thaling's suggestion. He rejected it and immediately asked for the second way. It was not impossible to refine the spirit of the upper rank 3 spiritual vein. With the means that he had left in the spirit of the spiritual vein, it would be easy to take its life. However, he did not have the heart to refine the spirit of the spiritual vein. He did not have the heart to do so because the spirit of the spiritual vein had never offended him. Instead, he had gained a lot of benefits from it. He did not want to do so because of the estrangement between him and the sect and his ambition to form his own team. He had to build his own blessed cave in the future. The upper rank 3 spiritual vein was the source of energy for the blessed cave. The second way is to refine the spirit of the spiritual vein as a natal celestial weapon. Let it follow your continuous breakthroughs in cultivation and slowly condense its own consciousness. Finally, it will grow into the spirit of a peak 9th grade martial venerable. Although Yuhauran's decision to refuse to refine the spirit of the spiritual vein disappointed Thaling, it also proved that he was constantly maturing. Therefore, Thaling, who was deeply gratified, did not hide the second way. Sigh, it seems that I can only give the Luotian umbrella to Ling Fei as a betrothal gift. The second way that Thaling provided made Yuhauran instantly decide to give it away. Since he could not refine the Luotian umbrella as his natal celestial weapon, Thaling would not agree to it either. After all, it would take at most 1 to 2 months for him to successfully refine his natal celestial weapon. Putting away the Luotian umbrella, Yuhauran raised his head to look at Qin Baijun, who was sitting on the ground in a daze. According to the time that he had taken the heavenly pill, there was still more than a minute before the pill would take effect. However, the Luotian umbrella's spirit had not only drained all of Qin Baijun's soul power and Yuan Li in an instant in order to escape from the aura of the broken hand, but it had also forcefully taken away the remaining medicinal effects of the heavenly pill. At this moment, Qin Baijun was no different from a powerless ordinary person. Sensing Yuhauran's gaze on him, Qin Baijun immediately recovered from his daze and raised his head to look directly at Yuhauran. His voice was very weak as he spoke. Master Yu, I sincerely apologize for what happened outside Qingyuan Hall. I am also willing to give you sufficient compensation. I don't know if you can resolve the grudge between us. What do you think? Yuhauran asked coldly as he walked towards Qin Baijun. Nodding, Qin Baijun indicated that he understood Huo Yuhao's question. After that, he took out an accessory from his neck. It was a sword-shaped accessory that was identical to the purple sword that Emperor Qin had taken out earlier. Chapter 796. In the plaza of the Imperial Clan Court. Qin Baijun, why is the divine soul of the sacred sword in your hands? Do you want to know? Qin Baijun asked indifferently as he raised his head to look at Prince Yifeng, who was exuding a strong killing intent. Speak! Prince Yifeng roared with an ashen face as he forcibly suppressed the surging killing intent in his body. Why don't you let the owner of the divine soul of the sacred sword tell you personally? Qin Baijun cut his right palm and allowed the blood to drip onto the sword-shaped accessory. When the first drop of blood fell onto the accessory and quickly merged with it, the purple clouds above the Imperial Clan Court suddenly trembled. As more and more blood merged with the accessory, the purple clouds trembled more and more violently. Suddenly, a ray of purple light separated from the purple clouds. Immediately after, the purple light quickly separated from the purple clouds and returned to Xianyang City. The purple clouds that were missing a ray of purple light instantly paled in color. Moreover, everyone could clearly feel that the power sealing the Imperial Clan Court had weakened a little. When the number of rays of purple light that had separated reached 6, the purple clouds above the Imperial Clan Court instantly exploded and the remaining 6 rays of purple light returned to their respective positions. At the same time, the power sealing the Imperial Clan Court completely disappeared. At this moment, everyone's attention was immediately focused on the sword floating in the void above. Your Majesty! Meng Zhenkai reminded softly when he saw Emperor Qin with his hands behind his back and no intention of withdrawing the sword. The sacred sword is no longer under my control. Emperor Qin replied indifferently. Emperor Qin didn't reveal any trace of anger or reluctance after losing 2 supreme-grade swords that could contend against 2 supreme-grade swords at the same time. This puzzled everyone present. Only Prince Yifeng, who truly understood the relationship between Emperor Qin, the sword, and the accessory, saw that Emperor Qin's eyes were much less unconvinced and unwilling, and more regretful and apologetic. Qin Baijun retracted his bleeding right palm and glanced at the accessory in his left hand before tossing it into the air. When the sword floating in the void above the imperial clan court sensed the sword-shaped accessory being tossed over, it rushed down like lightning and quickly collided with the accessory. There was no sound of collision. The sword-shaped accessory quickly merged into the sword. Then, a terrifying aura comparable to that of Emperor Wu's severed hand enveloped the entire imperial clan court. Meng Jingkai and the others, who had finally escaped from the pressure of Emperor Wu's broken arm, had no choice but to submit to the sword's terrifying aura and kneel down again. However, there were 4 people who did not kneel. The first one was Emperor Qin with his hands behind his back. The sword gave off a terrifying aura, and when it reached Emperor Qin's head, an intense emperor's might caused the terrifying aura to avoid Emperor Qin. The second one was Qin Baijun, who had fallen to the ground. When the sword's terrifying aura reached Qin Baijun's head, the sword-shaped accessory that had fused with the sword immediately emitted a gentle power. This gentle energy not only caused the terrifying aura to avoid Qin Baijun, but it also allowed him to recover the soul power and origin energy that he had lost. Seeing Qin Baijun stand up again, Prince Yifeng, who was kneeling on the ground, revealed a strong hatred and killing intent in his eyes. Qin Baijun turned a blind eye to this and raised his head to look at the sword. The third one was Su Hongwen, who had a smile on his face. When the sword's terrifying aura reached Su Hongwen's head, a faint gray energy rose from his body and resisted the pressure of the terrifying aura, allowing him to look at the sword with a smile on his face. However, what truly shocked everyone present was Yu Haoran, who also had his hands behind his back and was staring at the sword with a cold expression. Emperor Qin was able to stand because of his many years of companionship, which made the sword see him as one of its own. Qin Baijun was able to stand because his blood had fused with the sacred sword's divine soul, which had activated the sword's power, so it also saw him as one of its own. Su Hongwen was able to stand because of his powerful strength, which allowed him to resist the pressure of the aura. However, when the terrifying aura faced Yu Haoran, it was like a mouse seeing a cat. Yu Haoran, you now have 2 choices. In his sea of consciousness, he used the essence of the tortoise shell to forcefully activate a 10,000th of the victor's power. After completely scaring away the sword's aura, he spoke with a grave expression. "Speak," Yu Haoran said. "The first choice is to temporarily give up on killing Qin Baijun and immediately leave the imperial clan court and Xianyang city." "Impossible." Without any consideration, Yu Haoran flatly refused. With the help of the Thaling's possession technique and the power of the laws of time, he had destroyed 2 ancestors of the Wang family, causing his reputation to reach the peak. He had also dispelled the thoughts of some people who wanted to help Qin Baijun. Using the temptation of the 5 lives profound gate pill on the Meng family's ancestor Meng Jingkai, he had completely suppressed all the martial sages in the imperial clan court, allowing him to deal with Qin Baijun alone. Using the broken body and hand of the Qing-Ju Emperor Wu and the prime Venerable Realm natal celestial artifact, he had defeated Qin Baijun's strongest trump card. Moreover, Thaling had used a trace of the victor's power to scare away the sword that had reached the Emperor Realm. Now was the best time to kill Qin Baijun, eliminate the inner demon, and fulfill his promise to Qin Lingfei. How could he be willing to give up? Hearing this, the tower spirit was not surprised at all and gave the second option. The second choice is that I will take the risk of falling into a deep sleep and use your physical body to forcibly activate the victor to directly destroy the divine sword in the sword. Why? Faced with the second choice given by Thaling, Yuhauran was very puzzled. Because, before Thaling could finish his explanation, he was directly interrupted by a purple-clothed woman who appeared beside the sword. How should he put it? The purple-clothed woman who appeared beside the sword looked like a 17 or 18-year-old girl in terms of appearance and figure. However, the aura exuding from her body and the calmness and rationality in her eyes gave people a feeling that she had experienced many vicissitudes of life. However, what really shocked Yuhauran was that, the terrifying aura that could suppress more than a dozen quasi-martial venerables was very docile in front of the purple-clothed woman. Meng Zhenkai pays his respects to the Empress Dowager. I wish the Empress Dowager good health. Li Ziho pays his respects to. Just as Yuhauran was looking at the purple-clothed woman who appeared beside the sword, Meng Zhenkai and the others, who had also noticed the purple-clothed woman, hurriedly saluted her in a loud voice. Greetings to the Empress Dowager. Emperor Qin went down on one knee and also saluted her. Only Qin Baijun, who had regained his peak strength, softly called out her name with tenderness in his eyes. Chapter 797. In the square of the Imperial Clan Court. The Empress Dowager. The purple-clothed woman beside the sword was actually the Empress Dowager of the Great Qin Empire, the nominal mother of the Qin Emperor. Yuhauran was shocked when he heard how everyone addressed the purple-clothed woman. He looked at Qin Baijun with a playful look in his eyes. Zishuan. Even the Emperor of Qin, who had survived 2 tribulations, knelt down on one knee and addressed her respectfully as mother. Qin Baijun, who was only the chief of the imperial clan court and whose status and rank were not as high as Meng Zhenkai, not only did he not kneel to greet her, he even called her by a different name. Even the blind and deaf would not believe that he did not have a special relationship with the Empress Dowager. After hearing the gentle call, the purple-clothed woman's gaze shifted from the sword to Qin Baijun's body, and she responded with the same gentle voice. Baijun. However, when the woman in purple saw the playful look in Yuhauran's eyes when he looked at Qin Baijun, her gentle expression immediately turned cold. Following that, 2 purple rays of light shot out from her eyes. Yuhauran had no time to dodge, and the pagoda genie had no time to block them. Puff! Yuhauran endured the pain of his mind being instantly injured. He did not cry out in pain and spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. He did not bother to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth and immediately took a few top healing pills. After quickly stabilizing his mind, he did not hide the strong murderous intent in his eyes. Bitch, how dare you attack me? Bitch. After hearing how Yuhauran addressed the woman in purple, whether it was Emperor Qin, who had just stood up to plead for Yuhauran, or Meng Zhenkai, who was kneeling on the ground, they all stared at him in shock. Even Qin Baijun was so shocked that there was a lingering tenderness on his face, as well as a loss of self-control due to the shock. You, what did you just call me? The woman in purple, who was also in disbelief, pointed at Yuhauran and asked as if she had gone mad. As the Empress Dowager, you should scrupulously abide by etiquette and rules, guard the harem, and avoid gossip. But you shamelessly had an affair with a wild man. Not only did you lose the face of the imperial family, but you also lost the dignity of the imperial family. Calling you a bitch was too light. In my opinion, lewd and slut are more suitable for you. As Yuhauran healed his injured mind with the help of the medicinal pill, he wiped off the remaining blood at the corner of his mouth. Then, regardless of what the truth was, Yuhauran exposed his shortcomings and insulted him on the spot. Yuhauran, shut up! Hearing Yuhauran's insults, the Qin Emperor appeared in front of Yuhauran in a flash and reprimanded him with a sullen expression. However, the 3 consecutive movements of his forehead made Yuhauran know that he was trying to protect him. In this regard, he nodded gratefully. Then, he took a few steps back and sat down cross-legged. While he was healing his wounded mind with the help of the elixir, he secretly informed the second doppelganger he left outside Xianyang City to take the Black Bear away from Xianyang City as soon as possible, because when his mind was severely wounded by the 2 purple rays from the woman in purple, Thaling revealed a piece of information to him. The first choice that Thaling gave him was to temporarily give up the opportunity to kill Qin Baijun and choose to escape from the Imperial Clan Court and Xianyang City. It turned out that the woman in purple, who was called the Empress Dowager, was not only a quasi-martial venerable expert who had passed the body tribulation and the soul tribulation, but also the owner of a sword of the lower Emperor realm. Although it was impossible for the woman in purple to exert the full power of the lower Emperor realm sword with her current cultivation and strength, she could barely exert 1% of the sword's power through the connection between her divine soul and the divine soul of the sacred sword. The terrifying strength of Emperor Wu's realm was clearly demonstrated by Emperor Wu's broken arm and body. Therefore, even if he gave up the opportunity to kill Qin Baijun now, it would not affect his reputation, nor would it affect his Taoist heart, nor would it give birth to inner demons. The only thing he felt guilty about was that he could not fulfill his promise to Qin Lingfei. Ishin, stand down. Seeing Emperor Qin standing in front of Yu Haoran, the woman in purple, who had regained her rationality but was even more furious, ordered Emperor Qin in a hoarse voice. Mother, Haoran is still young and impulsive. I apologize to you on his behalf. In response to the woman in purple's hoarse voice, Emperor Qin put his hands behind his back again and replied indifferently. Ishin, do you think you've grown up and don't need me anymore? Are you going to burn the bridge after crossing the river? Although he said he was apologizing on behalf of Yu Haoran, Emperor Qin's tone and posture just now showed no sincerity at all. The woman in purple could not help but ask with a sneer. Mother Empress, I will never forget the kindness and support you have shown me. In response to the woman in purple's sneer, Emperor Qin put his hands behind his back and bowed gratefully. At least you have a conscience. In response to Emperor Qin's gratitude, the woman in purple nodded with relief. Then, her face darkened and she scolded. In that case, why don't you get out of the way? Withdrawing his hands, Emperor Qin looked up and sneered. Mother, although Haoran's insulting attitude just now was too extreme, don't you know whether what he said just now is true or not? Unlike Yu Haoran's exposure, the woman in purple was deeply ashamed of Emperor Qin's exposure of the royal family's scandal. Her face turned pale and she took 2 steps back. She wanted to explain herself, but when she thought about how she had given Qin Baijun the sacred sword soul, which was the core of a low-grade emperor-level sword, to protect him, and how the 2 of them couldn't help but call each other names, she finally sighed and pleaded in a helpless tone. From now on, I will seal myself in the imperial harem and will not leave without your permission. Can I exchange it for Baijuan's life? Mother, I have given you my permission. The Qin Emperor nodded his head and promised. After receiving Emperor Qin's promise, the woman in purple reached out and grasped the low-grade emperor-grade sword. She looked at Qin Baijun affectionately and then went straight to the imperial harem. Qin Baijun, hear me. Emperor Qin secretly breathed a sigh of relief as he watched his mother go straight to the imperial harem. Then, he ordered Qin Baijun with a serious face. Qin Baijun, hear me. Although he said that he was accepting the order, Qin Baijun did not kneel to accept the order, nor did he look at the Qin Emperor. His eyes were filled with unwillingness and resentment as he looked at the woman in purple who was heading straight for the imperial palace. This was not the result he wanted. Not only did he want Yu Haoran's life, but he also wanted to keep his current status and identity. Chapter 798. In the square of the Imperial Clan Court, after hearing Emperor Qin's punishment, Qin Baijun glared angrily at Yu Haoran, who also had a look of unwillingness on his face. Yu Haoran, everything I've lost is because of you. Yu Haoran stood up and provoked Qin Baijun, ignoring the mental trauma he had yet to fully recover from. That's right. Everything you've lost is because of me, Yu Haoran. If you're still a man, you should take out your life weapon and use your quasi-emperor's strength to cut me. Yu Haoran, down with your sword. In the face of Yu Haoran's provocation, Qin Baijun wanted nothing more than to do as Yu Haoran said and cut him down with his sword. However, Qin Baijun knew very well that he could not do so. He could not fall into Yu Haoran's trap. Qin Baijun took a deep breath and sneered. Yu Haoran, you don't have to rush to your death. That day will come very soon. Qin Baijun soared into the sky and quickly disappeared into the void. Haoran, we have already done our best to get to this point. After Qin Baijun left the imperial clan court, Emperor Qin turned to Yu Haoran's side and consoled him in a gloomy voice. Your Majesty, I am already extremely grateful that you were able to protect me from that woman's rage. I dare not ask for anything more. While dealing with Emperor Qin's consolation, Yu Haoran hurriedly asked Thaling in his sea of consciousness. Thaling, are you able to lock onto Qin Baijun by using your divine sense to the limit? What are you planning to do? Thaling hurriedly asked, sensing that something was wrong. I'm going to use the method of merging my doppelgangers to avoid everyone's eyes and kill Qin Baijun halfway, Qin Baijun said, forcefully suppressing his killing intent. The reason why he was so persistent in hunting down Qin Baijun was not only because of the grudge between them, but more importantly, because Qin Baijun had the main clue about his parents' death. No! Thaling immediately objected after hearing Yu Haoran's plan. Why? Yu Haoran asked in dissatisfaction. Firstly, that woman left a strand of divine sense on Qin Baijun's body, so she can know his situation at any time. Secondly, with the speed of a quasi-martial honored realm expert, do you think that my divine thought will be able to lock onto him? Alas! After hearing Thaling's reply and question, Yu Haoran couldn't help but sigh. After that, the green hills did not change, and the clear waters flowed forever. Qin Baijun could be found again sooner or later. He immediately adjusted his state and then directly soared into the sky. Seeing Yu Haoran soar into the sky, intending to leave the imperial clan court, Emperor Qin hurriedly asked, Haoran, where are you going? However, Yu Haoran did not respond to Emperor Qin's question and continued to soar into the clouds above the imperial clan court. Standing on the clouds, Yu Haoran closed his eyes and began to form a seal with his 10 fingers. What is Grandmaster Yu doing? Meng Zhengkai asked in confusion as he watched Yu Haoran rapidly form a seal in the clouds. He walked over to Emperor Qin's side and asked. Emperor Qin shook his head, indicating that he wasn't very sure either. I think that Grandmaster Yu is condensing some sort of treasure. Seeing Yu Haoran's seal begin to gather the clouds of different colors, and thinking back to how he had used a special secret technique to obtain the information in the jade slip he had left for Qin Lingfei, Su Hongwen chuckled. Condensing a treasure. Meng Zhengkai repeated with a frown. Just as he was about to ask further, Su Hongwen smiled and continued. A treasure that fulfills a promise. As the speed at which Yu Haoran's 10 fingers formed seals increased and more clouds gathered around him, Yu Haoran secretly reminded Thaling. Thaling, help me refine these clouds into a rainbow cloud. Thaling, who also knew of the promise Yu Haoran had made to Qin Lingfei, immediately began to form a seal with his 10 fingers. Together with Yu Haoran's seal, he began to compress the gathered clouds and shape them according to his will. Working together, in just 5 minutes, an auspicious cloud the size of a basketball court, emitting dazzling rainbow-colored light, appeared in the clouds. Lightly leaping onto the rainbow cloud, Yu Haoran stood at the top of the cloud. Then, he used his spiritual sense to drive the cloud to slowly fly toward the palace and Qingyuan Hall. Seeing Yu Haoran step on the rainbow cloud and head straight for Qingyuan Hall, Emperor Qin gradually guessed Yu Haoran's intention. He immediately soared into the sky and headed straight for the palace study. Meng Zhengkai, Prince Yifeng, Li Ziho, and the others also guessed Yu Haoran's intention. They all returned to their families and prepared a new gift. At the same time, they also informed the important members of their families to head to Qingyuan Hall to attend Yu Haoran and Qin Lingfei's late engagement ceremony. When the rainbow cloud arrived above Qingyuan Hall, it stopped. Yu Haoran turned around and went to the center of the rainbow cloud. While avoiding everyone's gaze, he changed into a brand new dark blue robe. Then, he returned to the top of the cloud and waited quietly. Yeren Hall. Ever since the Imperial Clan Court activated the protective array formation, Qin Lingfei, who had been using her spiritual sense to pay attention, completely lost track of Yu Haoran's situation. Originally, she wanted to leave Yeren Hall and head to the Imperial Clan Court personally. In any case, Emperor Qin, who had stopped her from leaving, was already in the void above the Imperial Clan Court. But just as she made up her mind and was about to leave, she was stopped by the young man and Wu Jingjun, who had suddenly visited. Facing the young man who was close to 90% similar to her father, Qin Lingfei was even more nervous and fearful than when she faced Emperor Qin. Although she instinctively wanted to obey when he stopped her, her concern for Yu Haoran eventually overcame her fear. However, when the young man took out a mirror and revealed the interior of the Imperial Clan Court, Qin Lingfei temporarily dismissed the idea of approaching the Imperial Clan Court. Then, she truly experienced the ups and downs of life, great joy and great sorrow. When Yu Haoran began to refine the rainbow auspicious cloud, Qin Lingfei could not control her excitement and finally shed tears of happiness. Then, she excused herself from the young man and Wu Jingjun and went straight to her bedroom, ordering the palace maids to help her dress up. When Qin Lingfei went to dress up, the young man smiled and said to Wu Jingjun, "Come with me to Qingyuan Hall and complain to Yu Shixiang. I will only speak the truth." In the face of the young man's provocation, Wu Jingjun replied coldly, "However, based on my understanding of Yu Shixiang, I'm afraid that he will be grateful to you for stopping me in time." After hearing Wu Jingjun's explanation, the young man was stunned for a moment, then complained with a bitter smile, "Since you know that I have good intentions, why are you still so hostile towards me? You don't understand." After leaving behind a reply that left the young man deeply shocked, Wu Jingjun strode out of Yeren Hall and went straight to Qingyuan Hall where the engagement ceremony was about to be held. "Brotherhood, I'm sure I don't understand." Looking at Wu Jingjun's back, the young man muttered to himself sadly. Chapter 799. Xianyang City, Qingyuan Palace Hall. After waiting for an hour at the top of the rainbow cloud, Yu Haoran opened his eyes and scanned Qingyuan Palace Hall. He was stunned. He realized that the number of guests in Qingyuan Palace Hall was several times more than when the engagement ceremony was held 9 days ago. Moreover, most of the guests were the younger generation of the rich and powerful families in Xianyang City. After thinking for a while, Yu Haoran knew what the elders were thinking. They probably wanted to make use of this engagement ceremony to build a good relationship with him and avoid the tragedy of the Wang family. At the same time, they wanted to use his achievements to motivate them to train harder. Yu Haoran shook his head and chuckled. He didn't take it to heart. Then, he cupped his hands and greeted Su Hongwen, who was sitting in the VIP area of Qingyuan Palace Hall. "Senior Su." "Master Yu." Su Hongwen quickly put down the spirit tea in his hand and stood up to respond. "Senior Su, I would like to trouble you with something," Yu Haoran said with a smile. "Master Yu, you don't have to be polite. As long as I can do it, I will not refuse." Although Su Hongwen replied in a straightforward manner, his heart was beating like a drum. After all, ever since he got to know Yu Haoran, everything he did was earth-shattering. Every process was frightening. Therefore, he was worried that what Yu Haoran asked him to do would exceed the limits of his life. "I'll have to trouble Senior Su to be the announcer later," No problem. Su Hongwen only wanted him to announce the betrothal gift from the groom. After hearing Yu Haoran's request, Su Hongwen secretly heaved a sigh of relief and quickly agreed with a smile. Thank you. After thanking him, Yu Haoran's gaze turned to Yeren Palace Hall. He had already found the woman who wanted him to fulfill his promise. He controlled the rainbow auspicious cloud to descend until it was 99 meters away from Qingyuan Palace Hall. He then took out the first betrothal gift he had carefully prepared, a wooden box made of 1,000-year-old purple heartwood. He then used his elemental energy to send it into Su Hongwen's hands. After receiving the first betrothal gift from Yu Haoran, Su Hongwen strode out of the palace and arrived at the hall filled with guests. Then, he opened the wooden box in front of everyone and took out a jade hairpin from within the box before loudly introducing it. A green lotus jade hairpin personally forged by a Tools Method Peak Great Grandmaster using deep sea green jade. It contains 36 types of offensive formations and 72 types of defensive formations. Although a top-grade Sage Realm magic tool was very precious, given the backgrounds of the many guests present, there was no shortage of such magic tools in their clans. However, the first betrothal gift was already a top-grade Saint Stage celestial device. Moreover, it was a green lotus jade hairpin that was very suitable for girls. So, what would the next betrothal gift be? At the very least, it was more valuable than the green lotus jade hairpin. Seeing that his first betrothal gift did not cause any commotion, Yu Haoran did not mind at all and directly took out the second betrothal gift. It was a pill bottle. Reaching out to take the pill bottle that Yu Haoran sent over with his elemental energy, Su Hongwen opened it and poured it into his palm. Then, he introduced it loudly with a face full of surprise. 4th grade face preserving pill. It can maintain one's appearance for 1,000 years. The second betrothal gift that Yu Haoran took out was not very tempting to the male guests present. However, to the female guests present, especially those who were slightly more beautiful, the temptation of the face-preserving pill was not inferior to a venerable realm magic tool at all. If they were not in the palace at this time. If it were not for the fact that the person holding the face-preserving pill was Su Hongwen, most of the women present would probably rush up crazily and fight for the face-preserving pill with their lives. However, some of the women who were related to the royal family began to quietly inquire about Qin Lingfei's preferences, intending to exchange for the 4th grade face-preserving pill from her. Seeing that the second betrothal gift finally caused some commotion, Yu Haoran smiled slightly. Then, he took out the third betrothal gift, a wine jar of 10 caddies, and used his elemental energy to send it to Su Hongwen. When the guests present saw that Yu Haoran's third betrothal gift was only a wine jar of 10 caddies, they felt puzzled and at the same time, a trace of contempt rose in their hearts. After all, the top 4 kinds of wine in the Tianxian continent were worth no more than 10 million 9th-grade spirit stones. And with Yu Haoran's identity as a peak Grandmaster of Alchemy and Array Grandmaster, even if he took out 4 kinds of wine in one go, it would seem a little cheap and stingy. Fragrance of 100 flowers. When Su Hongwen opened the wine jar, the entire hall began to be filled with the familiar wine fragrance. All the guests who had drunk the fragrance of 100 flowers felt even more contempt in their hearts. No, it's a little different from the fragrance of 100 flowers that was specially made in the heavenly world. A martial sage expert who liked to drink deliberately sniffed hard for a while, because he was infatuated with the wine fragrance of the fragrance of 100 flowers. Soon, he discovered the difference in the wine fragrance. That's right, although the wine fragrance is very similar to the fragrance of 100 flowers, the spirit flowers used in the brewing ingredients are definitely different. Another wine lover, who was also fond of drinking, also noticed the peculiarity of the wine fragrance. Your Majesty, can I have a cup to taste first? As a soldier who had been in the army for 100 years, Meng Zhengkai was even more a lover of wine, good wine, and intoxicating wine. Therefore, after smelling the difference in the wine fragrance, he directly appeared in front of Su Hongwen, holding a transparent wine cup in his hand, and asked Emperor Qin, who was sitting on the dragon throne for distinguished guests. Marshal Meng, this wine is Howren's betrothal gift to Fei Er. I'm afraid we have to ask for their opinion whether we should let you taste it first. Faced with Meng Jinkai's request, Emperor Qin smiled and made an excuse. Master Yu. Meng Jinkai immediately looked at Yu Haoren pitifully. Since it's given to me, it belongs to Ling Fei. Yu Haoren replied with a smile. This. Faced with Yu Haoren's excuse to Qin Ling Fei, Meng Jinkai suddenly felt a little embarrassed. As an engaged woman, she was absolutely not allowed to show her face before the witnesses, and the elders of both parties formally introduced her. Moreover, he could not directly check Qin Lingfei's boudoir with his divine thought, so he could only stand there with the wine cup in his hand. Grandpa Meng, you can taste it first, but you can't drink too much. Qin Lingfei, who had been observing the hall with her divine thought, reminded him very happily. Good. 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 Not only did he agree to let him taste the wine first, but he also affectionately called him Grandpa. Very happy, Meng Jinkai, after saying good 3 times, reluctantly took out an elixir bottle from his storage ring and gritted his teeth as he handed it to Su Hongwen. Dark Een water. Su Hongwen could not help but exclaim in surprise when he opened the elixir bottle a little, and the cold air in the hall dropped several degrees in an instant. After discovering that the elixir given by Meng Jinkai was the dark Een water, which could further enhance the dark Een constitution, Yu Haoren's face immediately revealed a look of surprise. Chapter 800. Xianyang City, Qingyuan Hall. Senior Meng, after you've tasted the wine in your cup, if you think it's alright, I can discuss it with Ling Fei and give you half a kilogram. Although the value of the dark Een water could not be compared to the 100 Flowers fragrance wine that he had just given away, it could be used to subdue and refine that rare treasure, making it more valuable than a cup of 100 Flowers fragrance. Therefore, Yu Haoren, who did not want to owe a favor, took the initiative to give away half a kilogram of 100 Flowers fragrance to repay the favor. Marshal Meng, you've struck gold. After hearing Yu Haoren's promise, Su Hongwen, who was pouring wine for Meng Jinkai, said enviously, Master Su, what do you mean? However, it was slightly different from the 100 Flowers fragrance that was brewed in the heavenly world. In terms of value, it could not be compared to the dark Een water. Therefore, Meng Jinkai was quite puzzled by Su Hongwen's envious tone. Marshal Meng, after you've tasted the wine in your cup, you'll understand what I meant. Su Hongwen replied with a smile as he covered the wine jar again. Shaking his head in confusion, Meng Jinkai looked at the jade cup in his hand and then revealed a puzzled expression. This was because the 100 Flowers fragrance brewed in the heavenly world was clear and transparent, like nectar. However, the wine in the jade cup was turbid, like yellow water in a quagmire. If it were not for the strong wine fragrance in the cup, Meng Jinkai would have had the urge to pour it away. He closed his eyes and took a small sip. After a few drops of the turbid wine entered his body and instantly exploded with an unimaginable amount of energy, Meng Jinkai suddenly opened his eyes, giving the guests a fright. Immediately after, Meng Jinkai tried his best to keep the wine in the jade cup in his hand from spilling. He bent his knees and sat down cross-legged, starting to refine the enormous energy that had exploded in his body. Although a few drops of wine had exploded with an enormous amount of energy, Meng Jinkai, who had passed the body tribulation, only took 3 seconds to completely absorb the energy that had exploded in his body. Then, without any hesitation, he drank all the wine in the cup in one gulp. After that, he put away the wine cup and began to absorb the terrifying energy of the wine with all his might. As more and more energy from the wine was absorbed, the guests were shocked to find that Meng Jinkai's aura was getting stronger and stronger. It was obvious that his strength was improving by leaps and bounds. Emperor Qin and the other quasi-martial honorables in the VIP lounge stood up and looked at Meng Zhenkai in shock. As people of the same realm, Emperor Qin and the others knew very well how difficult it was for powerhouses like them to increase their strength, apart from taking the risk of breaking through the third-order tribulation. Just a cup of turbid wine had such an obvious effect of improving strength, which was enough to prove that the turbid wine Yu Haoran had just sent out was not comparable to the 100 flowers fragrance brewed in heavenly world. This wine should only exist in the heavens. It's rare to find such good wine in the human world. It took him nearly 3 minutes to completely absorb the terrifying energy from the wine. Feeling the comprehensive improvement of his overall strength, Meng Zhenkai, who was born in the military, sighed with emotion like a jealous Confucian scholar. "Old Meng, what's so special about this wine?" Zhao Pejuan, the ancestor of the Zhao family, who was also from one of the 4 big families in Xianying City and had a close relationship with Meng Zhenkai, immediately asked when he heard Meng Zhenkai's jealous sigh. The energy transformed by the wine can improve the strength of the physical body, the divine soul, and the state of mind at the same time. Perhaps feeling that words could not express the preciousness of the wine, Meng Zhenkai pointed to the wine jar in Su Hongwen's hand and said, "Old Zhao, this wine is 10 caddies per jar. It's enough for a quasi-martial honorable to easily pass through the third-order tribulation." After hearing Meng Zhenkai's example, gasps could be heard from the crowd. They looked at the wine jar in Su Hongwen's hand and revealed a strong desire to possess it. In the inner hall of Qingyuan Hall, Qin Lingfei, who heard Meng Zhenkai's example, was stunned. She had never thought that the wine Yu Haoran used as a betrothal gift would have such a heaven-defying effect. At this moment, she regretted agreeing to Meng Zhenkai's request to taste the wine and rejecting Yu Haoran's offer of a caddy of wine. "Senior Su, it's better for you to introduce the origin of this wine." Seeing the greed in the crowd's eyes, Yu Haoran knew that Meng Zhenkai's example had caused a lot of trouble. 10 caddies per jar of 100 flowers incense could indeed improve one's overall strength and help a quasi-martial honorable to pass through the third-order tribulation. However, the effect was not as heaven-defying as Meng Zhenkai had said. At most, it was equivalent to one of the 5 lives mysterious gate, icy heart jade bone elixir, or 3-striped spirit clearing elixir. Meng Zhenkai could feel this way mainly because he had accumulated a lot of strength and had improved a lot. A cup of 100 flowers incense was just a catalyst. Therefore, he had to use Su Hongwen to dispel the greed in the hearts of the crowd and avoid causing unnecessary trouble for Emperor Qin. "Everyone." After hearing Yu Haoran's reminder, Su Hongwen opened the wine jar again, allowing the fragrance of the wine in the jar to permeate the hall again. "The third betrothal gift from Grandmaster Yu is this jar of 10 caddies of wine called 100 flowers incense." "Impossible." After hearing Su Hongwen's introduction, a middle-aged man in a count's robe refuted. "I have drunk the 100 flowers incense brewed by heavenly earth no less than 100 times. It is not this kind of fragrance, nor does it have the effect of increasing one's cultivation and strength." Su Hongwen motioned for the man to not be anxious and continued. "This 100 flowers incense is not the 100 flowers incense. Because the 100 flowers incense given by Grandmaster Yu is a fine wine brewed in ancient times. Not only is the taste softer and smoother, but it also has the powerful effect of increasing one's overall strength." At this point, Su Hongwen handed the wine jar to the eunuch who had accepted the betrothal gift and continued with a smile. "However, the effect of the 100 flowers incense is not as incredible as Marshal Meng said. 10 caddies of 100 flowers incense can at most help one overcome one of the 3 tribulations." "Ha!" After hearing Su Hongwen's introduction, Meng Zhenkai, who knew that he had caused trouble, immediately put on an embarrassed smile and agreed. "Just now, it was indeed my imagination. Because of the recent period of seclusion, my strength has been stuck at the edge of improvement. The special energy contained in the 100 Flowers incense can help me break through the bottleneck. After hearing Su Hongwen's explanation and Meng Jinkai's agreement, the greed in the eyes of the crowd gradually dissipated. However, it was only a temporary retreat. Because the 100 Flowers incense could help one overcome one of the tribulations, it was worth paying a high price for. Chapter 801 Xianyang City, Qingyuan Hall. Yu Haoran heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the stifling atmosphere lighten up. He took out his fourth betrothal gift, another pill bottle. However, just as he used his yuanli to deliver the pill bottle to Su Hongwen, Meng Jinkai suddenly spoke to him with a smile. "Grandmaster Yu, this old man seems to remember you saying this before. If this old man feels that this wine is passable, then give me 1/2 kilogram. Now, this old man feels that the wine of the 100 Flowers fragrance is quite suitable. The Grand Imperial Marshal, the ancestor with the highest status in the Meng clan, and a quasi-emperor who had passed his tribulation, was actually shamelessly asking for 1/2 kilogram of wine." Meng Jinkai's actions did not make the crowd laugh. Instead, the greed that they had just suppressed surged forth once more. Meng Jinkai's actions of asking for the 100 Flowers fragrance meant that Su Hongwen's introduction and his smoothing over the situation were intentionally trying to downplay the effects of the 100 Flowers fragrance. Perhaps the 100 Flowers fragrance's heaven-defying effects were what Meng Jinkai had said when he lost his composure. "Ling Fei, give Senior Meng a kilogram of 100 Flowers fragrance." Meng Jinkai's sudden request for the 100 Flowers fragrance made Yu Haoran feel that something was amiss. He immediately signaled for Qin Lingfei to keep her promise so that the Imperial Marshal could share some of the pressure. After hearing Yu Haoran's instructions, Qin Lingfei reluctantly agreed. All right. After all, Meng Jinkai wasn't asking for the 100 Flowers fragrance for nothing. Su Hongwen had also taken out the profound Yin water that was suitable for his constitution. "Ling Fei, Senior Su is not related to us in any way. Since he is willing to lower himself to be our guest, it is only right that we give him 1/2 kilogram." Since the greed in everyone's hearts had been aroused once more, it was unrealistic to try and suppress it again. Thus, in order to completely eliminate the trouble that the 100 Flowers fragrance might bring, Yu Haoran could only try his best to reduce the amount of 100 Flowers fragrance wine that Ling Fei had. Okay. Qin Lingfei still reluctantly agreed. Of course, no matter how unwilling he was in his heart, it was just as Yu Haoran had said earlier. He was a grandmaster at the pinnacle of the Pill Dao realm. For him to lower himself to be the announcer of 2 juniors was giving them enough face and elevating their status. It was reasonable for him to give him a gift of thanks. Hearing that Yu Haoran was willing to give him 500 grams of 100 Flowers incense, Su Hongwen was pleasantly surprised, and he could guess what Yu Haoran was thinking. While admiring Su Hongwen's quick reaction, Su Hongwen remembered that Meng Jinkai had given him a cup of 100 Flowers incense as a reward. He knew that he couldn't accept Meng Jinkai's thanks for nothing. Finally, he took out a jade box made of ice jade from his storage space. "Grandmaster Yu, Princess Ling Fei, as your senior, I can't accept your gratitude for nothing. This profound Yin flower is a 4th-grade profound Yin flower. Take it as my gift." Su Hongwen smiled as he opened the jade box. "Senior Su, your gift in return is too valuable." Seeing that Su Hongwen's gift was actually the profound Yin flower, which was even more valuable than the profound Yin water, Yu Haoran was pleasantly surprised. He also knew that he owed Su Hongwen a favor. If he wanted to repay Su Hongwen's favor, giving him all of the 100 Flowers incense wouldn't be enough. In desperation, Yu Haoran could only send a message to Su Hongwen. "Senior Su, after the engagement ceremony, I will give you 500 grams of 100 Flowers incense." "Really?" Su Hongwen asked in surprise and excitement. Senior Su, you've seen me Yu Haoran lie before, right? After replying to Su Hongwen's question, Yu Haoran continued to distribute the 100 flowers incense. Ling Fei, His Majesty is not only your father, but also my father-in-law, Yu Haoran. As his children, we should be filial to him. 500 grams. Give His Majesty 500 grams of 100 flowers incense to show our filial piety. If it had been someone else, seeing that Yu Haoran had taken the initiative to ask, Qin Lingfei would have gritted her teeth and agreed in the end, even if she was extremely unwilling. After all, in front of outsiders, she had to protect Yu Haoran's face. But for Emperor Qin, Haoran, my father has thousands of good wines in his collection. A mere 500 grams of 100 flowers incense is nothing to him. I think we shouldn't give it to him. Seeing Yu Haoran directly give him 500 grams of 100 flowers incense, Emperor Qin's face bloomed with joy. 500 grams of 100 flowers incense combined with the icy heart jade bone elixir was the most difficult of the 3 tribulations. It was also the most impossible to pass the body tribulation. Now, he was full of confidence. However, his daughter's decisive rejection caused the smile on his face to be replaced by bitterness before it could fully bloom. In this regard, Emperor Qin was unable to reprimand or criticize his daughter. This was because he knew that his daughter still resented him for indulging the imperial clan court 9 days ago, as well as for not saving Yu Haoran. Ling Fei, be good, be obedient. Showing filial piety was secondary. The main thing was to eliminate the greed in everyone's hearts and reduce the danger to Qin Lingfei. Therefore, Yu Haoran had no choice but to use corny methods to get Qin Lingfei to agree. And be good, be obedient. Yu Haoran's corny and intimate tone just now made Qin Lingfei blush and lower her head in agreement. It also made Princess Ru Ling, who was sitting beside her, roll her eyes. Ling Fei, Prince Yifeng is not only a prince of the royal family, but also the closest elder to you and me. It's reasonable for us to give him a kilogram of 100 flowers incense. Taking advantage of Qin Lingfei's embarrassment, Yu Haoran hurriedly struck while the iron was hot. Qin Lingfei, who still hadn't recovered from her embarrassed state, subconsciously nodded in agreement. But by the time she reacted and wanted to regret it, it was already too late. He had never thought that he would be able to obtain Yu Haoran's favor and obtain the chance to gift the 100 flowers incense. Therefore, Prince Yifeng's initial reaction was extreme surprise. Immediately after, he hurriedly stood up and thanked Yu Haoran while checking his collection of treasures to see what kind of treasure he could use to repay this kindness. Haoran, this king knows that you have a wood attribute physique and are also a master of alchemy. This 10,000-year green vine can be considered this king's gift in return. After looking through almost all the treasures in the storage ring, he finally found something that he thought was worthy of the 100 flowers incense and Yu Haoran's favor as a return gift. Yu Haoran, this vine is mine. Seeing Prince Yifeng take out the 10,000-year green vine, Yu Haoran didn't even have time to examine it before Thaling in his sea of consciousness immediately asked in surprise and tyrannical manner. In this regard, Yu Haoran neither objected nor asked. He only thanked Prince Yifeng and sent the 10,000-year green vine into the victor. Yu Haoran, this vine has already reached 30,000 years old. It looks like a broken branch, but it actually contains unimaginable vitality. It can help heal the injuries of my main body, Victor. Although Yu Haoran didn't ask, Thaling still explained the origin and use of the vine in detail. In this regard, Yu Haoran couldn't help but feel a burst of joy. After all, as a divine soul that had recovered to the peak of the martial saint realm, Thaling had many heaven-defying methods. However, due to the injuries of his main body, he could only use the possession technique and divine sense. Chapter 802 Xianyang City, Qingyuan Hall. Giving away 6 out of 10 caddies meant that there were still 4 caddies of 100 flowers fragrance left. This still posed a certain risk to Qin Lingfei. Furthermore, one must know their limits when doing things. One could not favor one over another. Thus, Yu Haoran continued to discuss with Qin Lingfei. Lingfei, the guests present are both pillars of the empire and our elders. It's the day of our engagement, so we can't neglect them. Thus, I've decided to give you 1.5 caddies of 100 flowers fragrance as a return gift for today's distinguished guest. How about that? Princess Lingfei, I beg you to quickly agree. Hearing that Yu Haoran was willing to give the 100 flowers fragrance as a return gift for today's guests, some of the younger disciples instantly prayed excitedly. After all, a cup of 100 flowers fragrance was enough to make Meng Zhengkai, who was a quasi-martial honor, advance by leaps and bounds. Then, for those who were only martial grandmasters and martial kings, wouldn't they be able to break through to the next realm? That's enough. Don't dream of drinking 100 flowers fragrance. Sensing the excitement surging from the younger generation, some of the elders couldn't help but throw cold water on them. 1.5 caddies of 100 flowers fragrance isn't even enough for the quasi-martial honor experts in the VIP area. Don't tell me you're delusional enough to think that it'll be your turn. The elders' advice calmed the younger disciples down instantly. They instantly felt dejected. However, they could only silently accept this cruel reality. Lingfei, you must give me half a caddy. In just a few minutes, the 5 caddies of 100 flowers fragrance had been reduced to 1.5 caddies. This made Princess Ru Ling, who was thinking for someone else, hurriedly request. Sister Ru Ling, you're not a wine lover. Why do you need 100 flowers fragrance? After giving away 7.5 caddies of 100 flowers fragrance, Qin Lingfei felt like her heart was bleeding. Thus, when she heard Princess Ru Ling's request for 100 flowers fragrance, she immediately questioned her warily. Lingfei, you also know that Meng Yun, who has been in the army for many years, is also a person who loves wine just like his family's ancestor. The half caddy of 100 flowers fragrance that I asked for just now is actually for him. Qin Lingfei's vigilant behavior made Princess Ru Ling realize that if she didn't tell the truth, it would be difficult to get her to agree. She could only lower her head and say this with a slightly red face. All right. Qin Lingfei gave it to the person she had pursued for a long time. Faced with Princess Ru Ling's reason, Qin Lingfei finally agreed reluctantly. Senior Su. Seeing that the crisis brought by the 100 flowers fragrance had been successfully resolved, Yu Haoran reminded Su Hongwen to continue. Cough. Su Hongwen coughed lightly and waited until everyone's attention was on him. Then, he opened the pill bottle and poured out the pills inside. 4th grade first grade Yin Yang longevity pill. It can increase one's lifespan by 1,000 years. As soon as Su Hongwen finished his introduction, the atmosphere became solemn. Regardless of whether it was a quasi-martial honor or a young person who had just started cultivating, there was not a single person present who did not want to live longer. The longer one lived, the more wealth one could enjoy and the more time one would have to break through to a higher realm. Therefore, the temptation of the Yin Yang longevity pill that could increase one's lifespan by 1,000 years was no less than the 100 flowers fragrance wine. Seeing that the Yin Yang longevity pill that he had looked down upon was actually able to produce an effect that was no less than the 100 flowers fragrance wine, Yu Haoran nodded in satisfaction. Then, he took out the 5th betrothal gift, which was also a pill bottle. After receiving the pill bottle that Yu Haoran had sent over using Yuanli, Su Hongwen smiled and opened the pill bottle. However, when he saw that the inside of the pill in his hand had clear veins that looked like the meridians of a human body, he suppressed his excitement and said, 4th grade first grade Ice Heart Jade Bone Pill. It has a 90% chance of helping a quasi-martial honor to overcome the body tribulation of the 3 tribulations. After hearing Su Hongwen's introduction, The reactions of the guests in the hall were very calm. However, to the quasi-martial honor experts in the VIP area, the appearance of the Ice Heart Jade Bone Pill not only helped quasi-martial honor experts overcome the body tribulation, but also represented the redistribution of power and benefits in the great Emperor Qin Kingdom. After all, everyone present knew that the Ice Heart Jade Bone Pill that Yu Haoran had given out would eventually fall into the hands of Emperor Qin. 1.5 kilograms of 100 Flowers fragrance wine combined with the 4th grade 1st grade Ice Heart Jade Bone Pill was only a matter of time for Emperor Qin, who had successfully overcome the soul tribulation and the heart tribulation. Meng Jingkai clenched his fists and looked gravely at Emperor Qin. Then, he raised his head and looked at Yu Haoran on the 7-colored auspicious cloud. Finally, a trace of determination flashed across his face. He knew very well that the impact of the Ice Heart Jade Bone Pill on cultivators of different levels was different. Therefore, in the face of the calm reaction in the hall, Yu Haoran was not disappointed. He immediately took out the 6th betrothal gift, which was also a pill bottle. After receiving the pill bottle that Yu Haoran had sent over using Yuan Qi, Su Hongwen directly opened the pill bottle. He did not need to pour out the pills in the pill bottle. Just by the smell of the pill, he knew what the 6th betrothal gift was. The 4th grade 3rd grade Nirvana pill has the heaven-defying effect of rising from the ashes, being reborn, breaking through the realm, and rebuilding one's foundation. It is suitable for all cultivators below the martial honor realm. As soon as Su Hongwen finished his introduction, the atmosphere in the hall instantly froze. Then, a series of gasps could be heard, followed by various discussions and requests. "Father, can you exchange this Nirvana pill for me?" At the scene, a young disciple with exceptional talent asked his father with an expression full of anticipation. As long as he could obtain this Nirvana pill, his talent would not only be able to become a demon, but his foundation would also be rebuilt, allowing him to break through to the martial honor realm in the future. In the face of such a heaven-defying pill, how could the young disciple not yearn for it? Looking at his son, the middle-aged man could not help but ask with a bitter smile, "Is that possible?" Faced with his father's question, the young disciple immediately lowered his head with a gloomy expression. "Your Majesty, I am willing to exchange my family's lower-grade martial honor defense weapon, the violet robe, for the 4th grade 3rd grade Nirvana pill." In fact, it was not only the ordinary guests in the hall who wanted to exchange for the Nirvana pill. Even the quasi-martial honorables in the VIP area were tempted by the Nirvana pill. Of course, the exchange for the Nirvana pill was not for themselves, but for the disciple who had the potential to inherit the family's legacy. "General Lin, the Nirvana pill is suitable for all cultivators below the martial honor realm. With Haoran's character, do you think he will give it to me?" Emperor Qin asked with a smile. Sigh. General Lin couldn't help but sigh when he heard the Qin Emperor's question. Chapter 803. Xianying City, Qingyuan Hall. Yu Haoran, who had consumed a 4th level 7th rank Nirvana pill before, was well aware of just how tempting it was to the people present. Thus, he had already anticipated the anticipation, disappointment, and dejection of the guests in the hall and the VIP area. Soon after, ignoring the chaotic atmosphere in the hall, Yu Haoran continued to take out the 7th betrothal gift, a jade box made of deep-sea blue jade. After receiving the jade box from Yu Haoran, Su Hongwen, who was adept at controlling the atmosphere, did not rush to open the jade box in his hands. He waited until everyone gradually recovered from the shock of seeing the Nirvana pill before slowly opening the jade box. An extremely rich aroma of spirit herbs quickly spread throughout the entire palace like the aroma of 100 flowers wine. Could this be the 9 Leaves Dragon Heart Ganoderma? A pill refiner, who did not have a high level of cultivation in the Tao of Alchemy, immediately cried out in shock after sensing the spirit medicine fragrance in the hall. What kind of treasure is the 9 leaves dragon heart Ganoderma? Some of the people who did not know the origin of the spirit medicine started to ask the people around them. Faced with this situation, Su Hongwen smiled and did not say a word. He only looked at the pill refiner who had cried out the origin of the spirit medicine. The pill refiner, who had suppressed his excitement with great difficulty, asked with a trembling voice, "Grandmaster Su, how many pieces of the 9 leaves dragon heart Ganoderma are there in the jade box?" 9 pieces. Su Hongwen smiled as he replied. He opened the jade box and showed it to everyone in the hall. Then, he continued to look at the pill refiner who had recognized the origin of the 9 leaves dragon heart Ganoderma. Pill refiner Chow, what kind of heaven-defying spirit medicine is the 9 leaves dragon heart Ganoderma? Can make someone as knowledgeable as you lose your composure. Seeing that the announcer, Su Hongwen, had not introduced the origin of the spirit medicine in the jade box, some of the people who were on good terms with pill refiner Chow could not help but ask. The 9 leaves dragon heart Ganoderma is a special spirit medicine that has been nourished by the blood essence of a mutated beast with the bloodline of a divine dragon. The moment the 9 leaves dragon heart Ganoderma sprouts, it will reach the 4th level first rank. Then, every 1,000 years, it will produce an additional piece. Alchemist Chow, what are the effects of the 9 leaves dragon heart Ganoderma? The crowd wasn't interested in the origin of the 9 leaves dragon heart herb. They only wanted to know the effects of this spiritual herb. Thus, the person who had asked about the dragon heart 9 leaves Ganoderma earlier couldn't help but remind him. The dragon heart 9 leaves Ganoderma can directly raise the cultivation of a martial saint. Seeing the confusion on everyone's faces, Apothecary Chow continued to explain. A 1,000-year-old dragon heart 9 leaves Ganoderma can help an expert at the peak of the 9th grade of the martial emperor realm to successfully comprehend the power of laws and break through to the martial saint realm without any side effects, and reach the peak of the 1st grade of the martial saint realm. A 2,000-year-old dragonheart 9 leaves Zoisha, assisting experts at the peak of the 1st grade of the martial saint realm in increasing their comprehension of the power of laws, allowing them to directly break through to the peak of the 2nd grade of the martial saint realm. 3,000. Hearing the alchemist surnamed Chow's long-winded explanation, Su Hongwen directly interrupted him and gave a brief summary of the 9 leaves dragon heart herb's heaven-defying effects. To put it simply, the 9 leaves dragon heart herb in the jade box can create an expert at the peak of the 9th grade of the martial saint realm in the shortest amount of time, without any side effects. Apothecary Chow's long-winded explanation, combined with Su Hongwen's brief summary, allowed the crowd to fully understand the heaven-defying effects of the 9 leaves dragon heart herb. It was as if they were facing the 100 flowers fragrance and the nirvana pill. They couldn't suppress the greed in their hearts. Even the 10 quasi-martial saints in the VIP area were tempted by the 9 leaves dragon heart herb that could directly create an expert at the peak of the 9th grade of the martial saint realm. However, they knew that when facing Emperor Qin, who was about to break through to the 3rd level of the tribulation, and when facing the 9 leaves dragon heart herb that could directly create an expert at the peak of the 9th grade of the martial saint realm, they could only think about it in their hearts. They didn't dare to reveal the slightest bit of desire to possess it. Seeing the many guests present, as well as the quasi-martial saints in the VIP area, reveal greed when facing the 9 leaves dragon heart herb, Yu Haoran couldn't help but shake his head in disappointment. How could there only be benefits in this world that didn't require any sacrifice? Although the 9 leaves dragon heart mushroom could increase one's cultivation without any side effects, the lack of mental tempering during the process of increasing one's cultivation would cause one to be unable to break through to martial saint or quasi-martial saint for a very long time in the future. Of course, he also knew why Su Hongwen didn't mention the side effects of the 9 leaves dragon heart herb. After all, most of the guests present were limited by their own potential and their superior environment. They might not be able to reach the peak of the 9th grade of the Martial Saint realm in their lifetime. The side effects of the 9 Leaves Dragon Heart Herb were basically negligible. The 9 Leaves Dragon Heart Herb was given to Emperor Qin as a betrothal gift. As for how he wanted to use the 9 Leaves Dragon Heart Herb, it was his own business. Therefore, Yu Haoran ignored the greed in the eyes of the guests present and directly took out the 8th betrothal gift. It was a palm-sized umbrella. A top-grade Martial Saint artifact, the sky-encompassing umbrella. Without needing Su Hongwen to personally introduce it, some of the guests present who had a good relationship with the palace lord of the Imperial Clan Palace, Qin Baijun, recognized the origin of the umbrella and couldn't help but cry out. Along with the guests' shouts, the atmosphere at the scene could no longer be described as solemn. Depression, fear, horror, and disbelief. Seeing Yu Haoran's 8th betrothal gift, the sky-encompassing umbrella of the exalted realm, after going through all kinds of complicated emotions, there was only one kind left in the hearts of the guests present, and that was pure envy and jealousy. They were envious of Qin Lingfei, who was engaged, and even more jealous of Emperor Qin, who had taken a liking to Yu Haoran in advance and decisively made him his son-in-law. Your Majesty, you have good taste. Looking at the bright smile on Emperor Qin's face, Yan Guixin, the ancestor of the Yan family, said in a sour tone. The ancestors of the other 3 great families also nodded in agreement. Ha ha! In the face of the envious and jealous praises of the 4 great families' ancestors, Emperor Qin laughed heartily. Old Prime Minister, 3 marshals. If it were any other time, I would definitely be humble and leave some face for all of you. However, in the face of your praises and envy today, I will accept them all. Because I am very happy right now. In response, Meng Zhenkai, Yan Guixin, and the others couldn't help but roll their eyes and look disdainfully at Emperor Qin, then turned their heads away and ignored the happy Emperor Qin. Chapter 804. Xianyang City, Qingyuan Hall. The 10 people standing at the edge of the hall were Feng Qinyun, Chu Zhongyu, and the others from Qinyun Peak. For Feng Qinyun. If it were not for the unforeseen event 9 days ago, as Yu Haoran's teacher, he would definitely be sitting in the VIP area, chatting happily with the ancestors of the aristocratic families and the quasi-martial highness experts. He wouldn't be standing at the edge of the hall like he was now. For Chu Zhongyu and the others. If it was 9 days ago, if he didn't avoid Yu Haoran in fear and disgust, he would definitely be standing in the middle of the hall, enjoying the flattery of the rich and powerful young masters. However, it was too late for regrets and self-blame now. When Su Hongwen saw that many guests had recognized the origin of the gauze sky umbrella, he did not waste his time explaining the origin of the gauze sky umbrella. He also did not reveal the secret that the gauze sky umbrella had lost its weapon spirit and its power had weakened. He hoped that the power of the gauze umbrella could continue to shock the ordinary guests in the hall. Ignoring the shock brought by the 8th betrothal gift, Yu Haoran took a deep breath and took out a beautiful elixir bottle carved from ice under a 10,000-meter-high glacier. Then, he waved his sleeve at the 7-colored cloud under his feet. Layer after layer of 7-colored cloud stairs were laid from the cloud to the entrance of Qingyuan Hall. His blue robe fluttered in the wind as he stood on the 7-colored cloud stairs. At this moment, Yu Haoran, who was slowly walking down the cloud stairs, was like an immortal in the clouds in the eyes of the crowd. They subconsciously felt a trace of reverence. In the eyes of the female guests, Yu Haoran, who was slowly walking down the 7-colored cloud stairs, was the Prince Charming they had been fantasizing about. He was the one who appeared in their dreams. How great would it be if I was the woman who got engaged today? Yes. After hearing the sigh of her companion beside her, a girl with outstanding looks agreed. Her eyes shone with stars. If I was the woman who got engaged today, I would be willing to die now. Yundai, what do you think about us being concubines for the prince consort? After hearing the agreement of her companions, the young girl who had first sighed suddenly suggested. Because the young girl was too envious, she didn't pay attention to the situation and didn't lower her voice. As a result, all the guests heard her clearly. Not only did the guests not mock her, but they also began to think about the feasibility of this method. Although Yu Haoran was the prince consort and Princess Ling Fei's fiancé, with his current achievements and influence, Princess Ling Fei might not be able to suppress him and restrict him from having only one woman in his life. After careful consideration, they felt that this method was feasible. All the guests who had brought their daughters here immediately used telepathy to tell them to display their charms in front of Yu Haoran to attract his attention. At the same time, he also gave them a guarantee. If she could successfully seduce Yu Haoran, her family would unconditionally do 3 things for her. Ling Fei, you're in trouble. Princess Ru Ling, who had been using her telepathy to observe the situation in the hall, couldn't help but tease. However, from the ripples in her bright eyes, it was clear that she was very envious and jealous of Qin Ling Fei. She envied her for meeting a man who loved her so much. She was jealous that she had a man who doted on her so much. Tch. Qin Ling Fei's gaze swept across the female guests in the hall, and she laughed coldly. Then, she said with a dejected expression, Sister Ru Ling, actually, I know very well that such an outstanding man like Haoran definitely won't belong to me alone. After hearing Qin Ling Fei's self-awareness, a thought flashed through Ru Ling's mind. It was an extremely absurd thought. Then, a sense of guilt welled up in her heart, causing her to lower her head in shame. However, Qin Ling Fei's next action caused Princess Ru Ling to forget her absurd thoughts and look at her in shock. She took a deep breath and swept away her dejected expression. Regaining her dignity as a princess, she spoke resolutely. I can tolerate Haoran having other women, but he has to ask for my permission first. Furthermore, the position of the first wife must always be mine. You're willing to share? Princess Ru Ling asked anxiously. Thankfully, the conflicted Qin Ling Fei didn't sense anything amiss. She smiled bitterly and asked in return. Sister Ru Ling, what can I do if I don't want to? What are you waiting for? Hurry up and open the door for the prince consort. Steward Jiang had been in a good mood. When he saw Yu Haoran's rainbow cloud staircase reach the entrance of Qingyuan Palace, he immediately knew that he was paying his respects to the Emperor and Princess Ling Fei. But when he saw the tightly shut doors of the palace, he immediately scolded the few eunuchs around him who did not have any discernment. He walked down the rainbow cloud staircase step by step and entered the hall through the door. However, when he saw the scene in the hall, he was shocked. This was because the guests standing at the entrance of the hall were all 16 or 17 years old girls. They were all looking at him with flirtatious eyes. He knew what was going on after thinking for a while. In response, Yu Haoran could only smile bitterly and shake his head. Then, he put on a serious face and walked over to Su Hongwen without blinking. He politely gestured. Thank you, Senior Su. Su Hongwen took the dark ice pill bottle from Yu Haoran and said politely, It's nothing. Master Yu, you don't have to be so polite. At this moment, whether it was the nervous guests in the hall or the soon-to-be martial honorables in the VIP area, they all stared at the pill bottle in Su Hongwen's hand. They were all guessing what kind of heaven-defying pill was in the pill bottle. After all, according to the normal process of giving betrothal gifts, the later the betrothal gifts would be more valuable. The second last betrothal gift was already a supreme martial honorable realm weapon, the sky-catching umbrella. The last betrothal gift would definitely be more valuable than the sky-catching umbrella. This was also the reason why the soon-to-be martial honorables in the VIP area and even Emperor Qin stood up nervously. Yu Haoran gestured for Su Hongwen to look at and introduce the last betrothal gift. Then, he took a few steps back. Su Hongwen, who was holding the pill bottle carved from the dark ice pill bottle, took a deep breath and slowly opened the pill bottle. Only a small gap was left open. The entire hall, the entire Qingyuan palace, was instantly enveloped by a cold air. After feeling the cold air that even their spiritual souls could not get rid of, everyone stared at the dark ice pill bottle. Chapter 805. Xianyang City, Qingyuan Hall. Ling Fei, what's wrong? When Su Hongwen had opened 1/10 of the pill bottle, and the cold yin qi had spread throughout the entire Qingyuan Hall, a thick layer of white fog suddenly rose from Qin Lingfei's body in the boudoir at the back of the hall. Princess Ru Ling asked with concern as she tried to disperse the white fog from her body to see what had happened to her. However, the strong wind formed by using Yuanli was immediately frozen by the chill emitted by the white fog when it approached it. At the same time, the cold yin qi from the white fog gradually spread and slowly merged with the cold yin qi from the pill bottle. Even Princess Ru Ling, who had reached the martial saint realm, could not withstand it. Although she wanted to leave the back of the hall, her sisterly loyalty made her choose to stay. At the same time, she immediately used her divine thought to inform Yu Haoran. Prince Consort, I am Princess Ling Fei's best friend. Ru Ling, something has happened to her. Please come to the back of the hall to take a look. After hearing Ru Ling's reminder, Yu Haoran immediately used his divine thought to observe. Then, a look of surprise appeared on his face. Then, he asked Steward Jiang, who was standing at the entrance of the VIP area. Steward Jiang, where are the dark yin flowers and dark yin water that Senior Su and Senior Meng gave me? I am preparing to send them back to Yeren Hall, Steward Jiang immediately replied. Bring them to me immediately. After instructing Steward Jiang in a firm tone, Yu Haoran's gaze immediately turned to Su Hongwen, who was still slowly opening the pill bottle. He could not help but remind him. Senior Su, there is no need to go through so much trouble. I will tell everyone the origin of the treasure in the pill bottle now. Then, he appeared in front of Su Hongwen in a flash and gestured for him to close the pill bottle again. After taking the pill bottle, he turned around and introduced it to the guests in the hall. The treasure in the pill bottle is the dark yin soul fire, ranked 6th*19th on the mystical fire ranking in the Tianxian continent. After hearing Yu Haoran's loud introduction, a person immediately rushed out from the VIP area. It was a silver-haired, blue-robed elder who instantly appeared in front of him. Grand Master Yu, what did you just say? The silver-haired, blue-robed elder clenched his fists, and his breathing became heavy. Immediately taking a step back, Yu Haoran asked vigilantly while holding the Xian Bing pill bottle in his hand. Who are you? What do you want? I am Yen Guixin, the ancestor of the Yen family in Xianyang City. The silver-haired old man in blue robe took a deep breath and introduced himself after suppressing the excitement in his heart. Senior Yen, the Xian ice pill bottle in Junior's hand still contains the Xian yin soul fire. After seeing Emperor Qin, Meng Zhenkai, and Prince Yifeng, who had also left the VIP area, Yu Haoran replied after heaving a sigh of relief. Master Yu, name your price. After getting confirmation from Yu Haoran, Yen Guixin instantly calmed down and said. In response, Yu Haoran chuckled and shook his head. After receiving the jade box and pill bottle from Chief Steward Jiang, he rushed straight to the back of Qingyuan Palace and left behind a sentence. Senior Yen, the reason why Junior risked my life to obtain the Xian yin soul fire is to improve my fiancée's physique and help her increase her cultivation and strength. Therefore, even if you take out a complete Emperor-level magic tool, Junior will not exchange the Xian yin soul fire with you. Yu Haoran's resolute attitude made the crowd even more envious and jealous of Qin Lingfei. At the same time, they were also puzzled by his sudden action of rushing to the back of Qingyuan Palace. Not caring about being rude, all the guests with cultivation of martial ancestor realm and above immediately used their divine sense to follow Yu Haoran into Qin Lingfei's temporary boudoir. In response, Emperor Qin, as the master of Qingyuan Palace, did not stop them. This was because his divine sense had already entered the boudoir at the back of the palace. After rushing into Qin Lingfei's temporary boudoir, the first thing that entered Yu Haoran's eyes was a beautiful woman dressed in white. Her hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall. She gave off a valiant aura. However, his gaze only lingered on her face for less than a second before he immediately turned to Qin Lingfei, who was completely enveloped by the white fog. Seeing that her appearance did not attract Yu Haoran's attention at all, a trace of disappointment flashed across Princess Ruling's eyes. Ling Fei, can you speak to me now? Although his cultivation and physical body had continuously improved and his resistance to the cold qi had greatly increased, Yu Haoran did not dare to recklessly approach the white fog, which emitted a cold qi that did not lose to the Xian Yin soul fire in the slightest. Haoran, I'm cold. From the moment the white fog had appeared in her body, Qin Lingfei's consciousness had been numbed by the cold qi emitted by the white fog. If she had not been worried about Yu Haoran and wholeheartedly wanted to hear his voice, she probably would not have heard what Yu Haoran had just said. Ling Fei, don't worry. Not only is your current state not a bad thing, it's an opportunity for you to be reborn. Seeing that Ling Fei could hear his voice, Yu Haoran hurriedly comforted her. Haoran, I'm cold. Yu Haoran's comforting words caused the numb Qin Lingfei to wake up a little, but the cold qi only caused her greater pain. Ling Fei, don't panic. Listen to me carefully. Yu Haoran hurriedly reminded her when he could sense the pain in Qin Lingfei's voice. Next, I will use the dark yin water to suppress the cold qi in your body. While it will help reduce your pain, it will also allow you to maintain a clear consciousness. At this point, Yu Haoran immediately opened the bottle of dark yin water that Meng Zhenkai had given him in return and sprinkled it all over Qin Lingfei's body. The white fog, which had originally been able to freeze even the force of a martial saint, actually trembled in fear when faced with the dark yin water and immediately retreated back into Qin Lingfei's body. The dark yin water that had been sprinkled on Qin Lingfei's body directly melted into her skin and began to chase after the white fog that had escaped. Haoran! With the suppression of the dark yin water, Qin Lingfei felt that the pain was not as intense as before. She immediately opened her eyes and cried out with tears brimming in her eyes. Ling Fei, calm down and listen to me. To Yu Haoran, who felt that days were like years, 9 days were equivalent to 9 years. After such a long period of longing, he was also very emotional when he saw Qin Lingfei open her eyes. However, he knew that now was not the time to talk to each other. As he hurriedly reminded her, he looked directly into Qin Lingfei's eyes and asked, Ling Fei, do you know that you have the dark yin jade body's special physique? Haoran, how did you know? Hearing Yu Haoran mention the dark yin jade body, not only did Qin Lingfei's expression change, but even Emperor Qin, who had been using his divine sense to observe the situation, instantly turned gloomy. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.